Hello and welcome to another office hours, another captain's table. This is I always do that. I just get all of my different shows mixed up. I'm glad I just didn't say welcome to the Astro Historian. My name's Paul Berserker01. Dang it! My name is Paul Berserker01, Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender at the AstroPub, your space bar at the end of the universe. And this is the Captain's Table. This is the podcast that I've been doing for 8 years now, almost 9 years, where we talk about. Yeah, I feel honestly, Griffin, this is the first time that I haven't been to I'm not going to be going to a Star Citizen event where I can just sit next to you and we can just do old man sit and be like,
I'm not happy, dude. I was going to come down there and do the dental work myself if I had to get you down there. I'm not happy about you not going.
This is the Captain's Table with podcast. We talk about Star Citizen. And before we get started on the topics for today, let's introduce these wonderful folks here. I'm going to start with I don't have the Darge. Oh, yeah, I do. Mr. Black Jurassic himself, Mr. Fast Cart. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? And where can they find you? And how do you? Am I my eyes deceiving me? Do you have an epic stash going on?
I don't know about epic, but I've been saving on beer. That's what's different.
You've got a nice big like mustache going on, and I like it. So,
and it's funny if I would save my mustache, I wouldn't have it would make me look like I have my lip would just go on forever. That's what it would look like if I just save my mustache. But yeah, hi everybody, I'm Fast Cart FC. I'm here to bring balance to the force as the layperson of the group. I'm not the chosen one, but so I want it broken, charred, and dismembered by the end of the show. Please enjoy the show. But I'm part of Star Citizen. I'm also a DJ for People's Radio. You hear my show every Friday at 2100 UTC. And I'm also on Soul Talk on Soul Citizen channel on Thursday and Soul Citizens on Sunday.
Okay. Let's change this real quickly.
By the way, Paul, I'm disappointed that I'm not going to CitizenCon, but because I wanted to ask for the autograph in the restroom again, but that's not going to happen this year.
Well, this year I would actually had time to because I wasn't running Atmo Esports and stuff. So, next we have another old man of Star Citizen like myself, Mr. Griffin Gaming RPG. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? And where can they find you?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Griffin Gaming RPG, co-producer with the Soul Citizens as well. Been in the Star Citizen community for quite a while now. I think I came in 2013 and been hanging out here for a while with Paul. Definitely always appreciate when we have the opportunity to come on and be with him. As Paul said earlier, I am disappointed that he won't be able to be here this year, and I'm sure he is as well, in light of all that we're expecting to happen this year at CitizenCon. There were other faces that we were going to get to meet over in the UK. I know that Execute, for example, is another one that was looking forward to connecting with you. So we're going to send the love anyway. We'll be thinking about you while you're over there. And if I can find a helmet to get signed and bring back, I'll think about trying to do that for you.
I have to get a full-fledged picture of myself because Darge has promised to print out. To do a cutout and walk around with a full picture of myself and take pictures with me. So
that'd be great. That would be great.
Well, can I make a special request? Can I get a body pillow of you for a reason?
Listen, do not tempt me. I will do a documakara of myself at some point for raising funds. I've been looking for an excuse for it, but it'll happen at one point. And then we have Major Star Stuff. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen, and where can they find you?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Major Star Stuff of I think T Games and Star Stuff on some channels. I've been with the game for I think it's been 2.5 years now. You may know me from a couple of Banu language videos that I did last year. I think I was on the Captain's Table.
Yeah.
Last time in November, December, probably. And I took a bit of a break this year because I restarted my business, which is you hinted at earlier already in PR consulting, brand strategy and such. And I also have a side thing going that's being a tea educator. So that's been basically what I've been doing this year. But I feel ready to be returning, as a lot of people probably right now, because 4.0 when, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me again.
No problem. And you said you're a
Okay.
tea educator. So I'm going to ask the question for those of you who are watching this or listening to this after the fact. Can you give them a good suggestions for tea for the fall?
Yeah, I always say just grab something that speaks to you in terms of what it looks like, or even the fragrance. Probably one recommendation I would have for anyone who's curious about getting a bit serious about specialty tea. That's kind of my area. Just look up oolong tea, specifically Taiwanese oolong tea. If you like green tea, then there's greener oolong teas. If you like black tea, there's darker oolong teas. It's a fascinating area and something for tea lovers and for tea noobs alike. So oolong tea would be my recommendation to look into.
Awesome.
Yeah, I am too used to wheat tea, so you got me there.
All right. So we're going to talk about the topic. This was actually, we're going into CitizenCon and stuff like that. And Griffin asked if they could come on. And I was like, yeah, sure. Great. We haven't had Griffin on in a while. And I asked Griffin for some topic ideas. And Griffin gave a couple of topic ideas. And this specifically, I thought was a pretty decent one. And then knowing Major Star Stuff's background in PR and marketing, and Griffin's background in media and media in general, I thought this would be a great thing to talk about when it comes to just the captain's table, which is kind of crying and buying, or the controversies and the sales. For those of you who don't know, this September is set to be one of the biggest Septembers. No, it's the biggest September in terms of sales for CIG ever. And it's not even close. It's like 20% higher than everything else.
6 million. Yeah.
Yeah. So, which is interesting considering, the past has been, obviously they've been making more money every year overall, but month to month, it's not always the same. And this year specifically, they had at least 2 releases, one of which was kind of controversial with the ATLS. And there was a lot of noise online, a lot of people not just in like Spectrum and Reddit, but also in like social medias, it was everywhere. And as a result, it seems weird to see people who are like, I'm not going to purchase it. It's too expensive for the ATLS, or have a lot of other discussions on it. But yet still CIG seems to have made even more money despite these controversies. Even things like 4.0 being delayed a little bit because they announced it this month that they were going to be releasing it in Q4 instead of Q3. There's been not a lot of good news at CIG, yet still that funding tracker's ticked well up. So I'll start with you on this one, Major. Just general vibes. What do you think? What do you think is going on? Why do you think that there's this increase in sales, but also we're getting a lot more kind of negative views in Star Citizen?
Yep. You mentioned September being, I think that's what I like to start with. September being historically, the strongest September in Star Citizen history. Mm-hmm. If we look at the numbers throughout this year, things started a bit slower, I think, than last year. Then May kind of, I think, was also a very strong month. January, February, March. Yeah, I think it was May, right? That kind of helped them to catch up on last year, but now September. So I feel like we're on the way towards another strong year, maybe at least similar as last year. I'd say probably a lot higher with all the 4.0 high potentially getting revived. But this month the Atlas, I pledged it with credits just to have that valuable tool in game. The controversy and as far as I understand you, Paul, we may disagree on that a little bit.
I think so.
The controversy around, is it a cash grab? Is it not a cash grab? I think changing the way things work in terms of which tractor tool can carry which size of containers, and then bringing a new tool that is kind of essential coming forward if you're serious about heavy cargo hauling, and then introducing it at this price point, plus it obviously not being in game immediately. That's I can see how that may get some people be disappointing to some people.
Mhm.
That being said, what was the question?
I was that's just part of it. It's like it's just your general vibe. Like you're seeing.
Yeah.
You said you can see kind of like the perspective of people why they might be mad about this. The other question is more like
I can understand both sides of swords, right? But again, we said earlier here, it's not so much about fixing how they do things, but like fine tuning. Maybe like how can we introduce this in a way that gets people excited about this really cool new toy, specifically for cargo people. The ones I've been involved with really like how the Atlas works. It's just such a joy to use, really, in my opinion. How can we just get people excited about the tool and at the same time still launch it in a way that we get the financial value out of it that we need as a company. You can't blame them for having to do that.
Yeah. So your general vibe is that it's not necessarily like the Atlas was bad. The Atlas was actually very good, and everything about it was good, except for maybe how they handled the release and the timing and the way that they talked about it. Is that generally saying?
I want to quote chat here. Yes, delivering it in an exciting way and avoid the stuff that makes people sour. And that again maybe requires a bit of looking into how do we launch it? What's the communication around it? I don't expect them to introduce it and be like, oh, everybody gets it for free or it's available in game right now. But announcing 32 SEO containers won't be. You will need the Atlas for that in the future, and then while introducing it at this price point, and it is actually the price point I was expecting, but most people I've spoken to were expecting much less. So I think a lot of people thought it would be like $20, $25, maybe $30. So I think that's just a lot of things then together that from the outside, maybe even individually making those choices, the people who make those choices individually, you can't maybe even blame them, but all that together, looking from the outside or from us, the community, is not the ideal result then.
Okay. Griffin, same question for you. Kind of the general vibe. What do you think is going on with this? Like why CIG is like making so much money in September, but also all of these sorts of like this controversy that's coming out.
Yeah. A lot of stuff that Major Star stuff I would agree with from the community side of it. I definitely would agree with his perspective of it. My perspective might be a little bit different. In relation to the funding, I'm somewhat surprised, but at the same time, not surprised. I think you and I have both, several of us have forecasted the year that CIG would not make as much money as they did the last year. And after being kicked in the butt 3 times, I'm not taking that anymore. Because the last 2 years, they have definitely surprised me. Not that I thought that they would make a lot less money. I just wasn't sure that they would break what they did the previous year. There's a certain point where breaking records feels good, but the reality is, are they bringing in enough revenue to maintain the company and run it? It doesn't mean you have to break a record. Just make sure that you pay your bills and you can keep moving forward. So the record breaking thing, trying to tell folks don't get caught up into that. Just make sure they can pay the bills and keep the lights on. In regard to the Atlas and how it was presented, I remember a few weeks before that they did the episode on cargo, and we saw it in the background, just very on the right side of the screen, yellow. And some folks were wondering, "Oh, is that the Titan? Is it that?" And I'm like, "Nah, it's probably a loader because they're talking about cargo." And ultimately that is what it was. I thought that they're going to drop it at about $20. I figured, hey, buy 3 for $50. That would be a perfect price point. But then after I looked at the thing and I saw it was $30 or 40, whatever it was, 35. Then I started examining it and I noticed that left arm on that unit has some other use. And based upon how CIG has been developing their other tools, the multi-tools and things that have multiple features, I guess what we're seeing is that unit possibly will do other things. It may be for welding. It may be 5 or 6 other things, which brings the value up from $20 for me to $35 if they begin to bring these other attachments and things like that could be used for it. So if we just look at it as a tractor beam only, yeah, it seems high. But if it becomes a multi-use, you can use for freight hangar in the distribution centers, and it does a lot of other things, then that $35 is going to make sense. Also, the fact that the other 2 tractor beams are not sold, they're in game. This for revenue for this particular one doesn't bother me as much. The other thing is that I always expected that this adjustment would happen between the three tractor beams. The handheld and the shoulder, we knew that there was going to be one is stronger than the other. So I just see a natural progression of that from the small hand. And I think they will all have their place. Some of us already know you can't take the Atlas everywhere. You know, there's certain times you're just not going to have it. That middle rifle does some jobs, and even the small one, if you don't want to have to lose that second slot on your back, the small helps you out. So I think that it's a matter of perspective. I think that sometimes we're as gamers looking for that one thing that does everything well, and I think CIG would hurt themselves if they made a ship that did everything well. You have to have those Achilles heels with every item in order to have some balance in the game and choices in the game as well. Let me just say this is a point of encouragement to the community. We say this all the time on our show. Please don't draw a line in the sand when something comes out from CIG thinking this is the way it's going to be forever. Things change. And tractor beams are going to change. Folks complained about Beam Citizen for a while, and now we're finding out that Beam Citizen may not be a thing. Maybe there will be some mechanics and things that we have to do. So every time something comes out, people think, "Oh, this is the final product," and it's not. It's the on the journey to get there. And some of these things that we get are part of that journey. And we just have to kind of sometimes be patient and wait and see where it's going to evolve to, especially when it's tier 0, tier 1. I warn everybody, if something comes out tier 1, tier 0, man, it's just getting started. You know, there's way more to come, and refinements and things that'll get better, maybe to even exactly what you wanted. So just give them that time to get there.
Okay. Fast Cart, let's get your perspective on this. What do you think is going on? Why do you think we have these controversies? It's like a lot of negative vibes around Star Citizen, but also still CIG is still breaking records in terms of like a monthly reports, monthly stuff.
Yeah, I dropped the link in chat. It's from the CCU game, the funding dashboard. So that may be some use for people who may not know about it. But yeah, it seemed like, just a background. January, March, and April were kind of weak this year compared to previous year. They had a phenomenal May for Invictus Week. They made $25 million higher than previous year. And like you said, early in the show, September they made $6 million more than previous year. So even though it does have ups and downs, the big Invictus especially was big this year. But yeah, as far as the Atlas and everything, I was expecting like $20 war bond, $25 for all-site credit. So I was basing off the PTV, which was $15. So I was not expecting it to be 35. But I was okay with it. I decided not to get it. I'll probably get it in game, and when I do get it in game, I may pick up one or two, but I'm not gonna pay real money for it. But that's just me.
Okay.
As far as the controversy goes, when I first heard or noticed about the Atlas, I thought it was going to be the full-on Titan suit, so I got overhyped. I overhyped myself. I was like, "Oh man, this means the Titan suit is coming? Oh yeah!" And I said this on Slow Talk. I want the Titan suit so bad, and for me personally, I would pay like $150 for it.
Wow.
That's how I would pay $150 for it. But I know most people are saying, "Oh, it's probably going to be $75," and that's probably more reasonable. So that's how badly I wanted the Titan suit.
I am 100% with you on that one. I'm 100% with you on that one.
So when it came out to be just a cargo loading, I was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool." And it was 35. I was like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of useless." But for me, I was okay with it. But as far as the community goes, I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. I hear people complaining about it, and it seems like every year there's something between Gamescom or August and CitizenCon that lull to just drive people. I don't want to say crazy, but it seems like they get more vocal about. I don't want to say nothing, but they become more passionate about stuff that seems not unimportant, but what I'm trying to say. They become more passionate about the game development, and because there's no patch going on, or it's just a lull. So I think it's just that cycle that goes through, and I'm not sure if this year is worse than previous years. It just seems to me that it's part of the cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I throw in something real quick? Because
Go for
Makari, I think it was someone in chat said something about how do we believe the dream when they change things or they say it's not going to do something in the Q&A. And I went back and looked at the Q&A again just to make sure. But what they said is that paints are supported, but vehicle components and tractor beams are not customizable for the initial release, meaning that for now. So I think that there is room for them to do something. And even if they do, I still think that there's room for them to modify this thing just because of the basis of their history of how they've done other items in the game. So, I may be projecting a little bit here, but I'm just saying when I look at that item, if I see greater potential in it than just that one arm with one tractor beam, I think it's cool. I think it's also, to Fast Card's point, I think it's also obviously our first stepping stone toward the Titan suits. It's not the Titan suit, but definitely the mechanics of it and stuff allow them to start saying this is a direction, how we can build it and how we can make it work. So, I think it's important. I didn't buy one yet because I'm waiting till IAE. I'm hoping to do a 3-pack or a 2-pack. I didn't want to buy the individual because I could definitely see having a couple of them, But, and let me say the last thing too, because I didn't answer your other question about the funding.
Yeah.
It's us old crotchets who aren't spending money. You've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Those of us who've been around for a while, we're shuffling things around. We're using credit. We're doing stuff like that. We're melting. Those new folks that have come in within the last 2 to 3 years, they don't have all of the darkness inside of them. And so for them to spend money in the game and generate that type of revenue is not surprising. We picked up a lot of people over the last year since CitizenCon last year, a lot of new people. And those people are excited about the game, regardless of how we might feel about it and how broken we feel it is. And as you mentioned, how sour we can be. There are other people who really, really enjoy coming in and playing this game. I know a guy who bought 2 ships, and literally every time there's a melt or a reset, he goes back in and re-earns like 15 ships in the game, without any problem. We're just using game credit. He loves doing that, So anyway, that's my thoughts on that.
And also, let me just say that, when they were presenting the Atlas and PTU, everyone was enjoying it. People were saying, "Oh, cargo is great. I could just stand in one place and drag it from the elevator and put it in my ship." So it seemed, like I said, maybe it's a vocal minority, but I don't know. But I do want to say that I really can identify with the Atlas because I know what it's like to have one good working arm.
Of course, Fast Card.
If I may weigh in on just to add something, because I agree, Griffin, what you said as far as I understand. Oh, I agree with what you said about setting another record year after year after year. It's not something that we as a community or they necessarily should put their focus on, right? But if we look at the because I've got the numbers here for once, I've come prepared. If we look at 2019 compared to then 2021 and up until now, basically, I want to say these past 4 years, the annual pledge amount has increased by 100%, so has doubled. And I feel like this year, I think it will be a little bit more in line with the increase that we saw last year. Will be a new record. I am fairly convinced it will be. But at the same time, if we look at this year compared to last year, the amount it's fairly comparable. Really, we had a very strong Invictus this year. May a weaker beginning of the year this year, but it looks fairly similar. But I'm wondering whether this is just in line, like a slow growth that is maybe in line with or comes from the fact that they've been investing heavily in marketing. Those I'm not sure, maybe I'm the only one getting all those YouTube ads, playable now, flyable now. That's which is something I'm personally really concerned about. Now that I'm worried, but I find it interesting. There's this challenge that they must be facing. On the one hand, they need right now, they have to increase the brand awareness for Star Citizen / Squadron 42 in order to prepare for I'd assume, massive Squadron 42 launch campaign towards a wider gaming audience. At the same time, they're bringing in people right now. Well, they're bringing you money, but also then maybe pledge for Invictus, then drop off again, and then go back to the wider gaming community, telling them, I tried it, I pledged, and it's still only an alpha, right? So I think that's interesting that we're looking at, they it's a challenge, I think, what they're doing and
Yeah.
what they're facing right now in terms of marketing.
Yeah.
But this growth these past few years, I think it's in part just a natural consequence of their marketing efforts, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
As the wider gaming community like slowly opens up and gets less
Mhm.
Critical, I'd say, or
less
skeptical.
critical. Let's put it
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. I have my own theories on this, and some of it is I don't mean to be insulting to people because it's not my intent. It's just that in my experiences being in gaming for as long as I have, I know that people can be very passionate about games, and they can be very vocal, and often people will be more vocal and will surround themselves through like social media. Social media, for those who don't know, creates echo chambers because the way the algorithm is designed is to put you into people who are like yourself. So you're surrounding yourself with similar minded people. So you have a situation where you say something and everyone around you seems to be agreeing with you. So you say, okay, so this must be the consensus, but you don't realize
bubble.
you're in a bubble. And so as a result, unless you seek yourself out to go find other people who have different opinions, you will be stuck in that bubble and it kind of bounces back and forth. And I think the key here is that what we're seeing is that there's the bubble of folks who are either critical about CIG or are don't like some of the direction CIG is doing, but and then they're kind of feeding off of each other. When in reality, the people who are actively playing the game or kind of like who are like so I was like, oh, neat, I buy because I want to be honest here. Most people aren't very complicated. If they say something that look, this looks cool, it's useful in game, I will purchase. I have $35, I will purchase. It's not really a moral. No one's sitting there like wondering about the moral quantities of buying a vehicle. They're just like, neat.
Speak for yourself, Paul.
Here's my wallet. Boom. And I think what's going on is twofold. One, they spelled the name right. So if you spell the name right, it gives attention to people. And as long as the thing work or thing do what it's supposed to do, if you're telling people about the thing, you're increasing the visibility and the brand awareness of thing. So people might say, oh, wait, CIG added the mech? Cool. I'm gonna go check the mech out. Oh, it's a power loader from Aliens. I just watched Alien Romulus was pretty cool. Let's check it out and then purchase. So I think to some degree, the noise probably helped the sales because there's more people who knew it existed and went out to go buy it.
Part of it.
So
can I just give props to the marketing team for that commercial for the outlet?
Yeah.
Because they reference Alien and people who are old enough will know it. So I got to tip my hat off, give applaud, everything for the marketing team for that.
They knew what they were doing.
It was great.
They knew what they were doing. That was for sure. And I do think there's a case of like CIG is increasing the number of YouTube ads. I have YouTube Premium because I'm dumb.
Me too.
But not dumb. I value. I'm just like, it's like a handful of things, and I like the services it gives, so I'll just pay for it. But that's. I know a lot of people don't pay for things that are free, but whatever. But I have it, and so I don't have it in the ads. So I don't really see it. But from what I've heard is that it's been increasing more, and I think a lot of that is them dialing it in because I really hope. What CIG is doing is building up a demographic base. So they're targeting, because the one thing great about YouTube is you can target ads to specific demographics because YouTube can kind of tweak. You can go into there and kind of like, hey, I'd like to see this demographic, go here. And so YouTube starts promoting those to the right people, and you can see the return. You can start seeing that return of, oh yeah, we ran this ad over here for this group, and now suddenly we have this sales and this sort of things, and comparing back and forth. Then they can dial it in. So when Squadron comes out, they can go, this is our demographic, drop it. And so they can put more money because YouTube ads are actually fairly cheap. We're still talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars, but you get a lot more bang for your buck with a YouTube ad than you do with a radio or TV ad, which are far more expensive. That's not my expertise. I know you have more of that sort of experience, Griffin. So I don't know if that tracks with you, but yeah, they're pretty very pricey. So YouTube gives you a little bit more of that tweak stuff. So I think that also is helping a little bit. Is I didn't think about that because I don't see ads. So Major, if you're saying you're seeing more ads, that makes sense because you're the demographic they're trying to hit, someone who is in that sort of gaming space. So
someone who already spent too much money on the game.
Yeah, yeah. And I also think what's going on is we're reaching a point where more people are playing the game on a regular basis, whether that's good or not. We're seeing a lot more active players, and active players means that people are more willing to pay if they're enjoying the game, if that makes sense. So, all right, let's go. We're gonna kind of wrap this back around. If we'll start with we'll continue with this discussion in terms of I was just going to put it properly. The feedback. So, like, what about these this sale could CIG, like, what from all of the kind of discussions or the sort of people who are upset about, say, the ETLS or what CIG's been doing recently? What are some suggestions that CIG could possibly fix to improve so this kind of thing wouldn't happen in the future? Fast card.
I was just typing so I can give myself clarity. I would say my advice would be, to first be open development, and they are. Some people may complain they're not open enough. Some people may complain that they're too open. They give too much information. But maybe they could be more open about how they price ships and how they price vehicles. Because sometimes, like in the Q&A, they said, "Oh, it's priced this way because so and so and so." But I don't believe they did that this time for specifically the Atlas, or I don't believe they did it for Peregrine either. I might be mistaken about that. But maybe make it a point to every time they release a new concept or a new ship, they say, "Oh, we priced it because so and so and so." So maybe that would help.
More
is that something they've ever done in the past?
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
They did it
Not
with
often, but sometimes.
They did it with like the steel, and they've done it with other things where they've mentioned like equipment. They price equipment at a certain high price. Like the reason why gunships are really high prices because they add more money per gun. So the more you put more guns on a ship, they want to sell it for higher prices, that kind of thing. So
with the alien tax.
Yeah. So with the steel, that does it mean after they got a shitstorm for the high price, then they ended up explaining, or is it like when they introduced it, they also explained their logic?
There was a Q&A.
There was a Q&A.
Oh, in the Q&A.
Yeah, because the Q&A usually happens about a couple of weeks after release, so they got a shitstorm for it because of it, and then in the Q&A they're like, "This is why we sold it like that." So,
makes sense, yeah.
But it's not just cutting steel.
Yeah,
they've done it with a couple things.
Do that more often.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think they do it very often, but they do it, and they have done it in the past. Griffin, same thoughts as you. What could CIG improve to kind of reduce this friction that's going on in terms of like social media exposure and such, or is there anything?
I'm really not sure, to be honest with you. We've talked about CIG has to walk this weird tightrope when it comes to transparency, communication. How much do they share? How much accountability and responsibility do they have to the community? How well does the community process that information when we get it? There's over 10 years or 11 years worth of information out there that on some part is almost impossible to acquire, and at the same time, it's a little bit on our responsibility to go out there and try and find it. It can be a bit overwhelming. All of us have been in this game, except for obviously major star stuff. We've been in here a long time, and there are things that we forget. Things that CIG has said, things that we thought they said over the years. And so communicating why they do things, I think that there's a certain level of openness that they can have toward that. But I also feel like there's a certain amount of time that's spent on that. Like it has to happen every once in a while, because if they do that all the time, especially, and I know people are going to flip when I say this, we're still in development. We're still in that mode where things change and can change. And so sometimes I think that as much as I want to know stuff, or I think we as a community want to know stuff, I've also seen how we respond when things don't go the way we think they should go, or when we think CIG made a mistake. And I'm not saying that we can't comment and we can't have feedback. I just don't know if there's anything that they can ever do to get it where most people are satisfied. Some people, I think, are fine with the way things are. Some people feel CIG communicates. Well, they'll say, "Oh, they do better than any other company." Then there are other people who will say they promised that they would communicate with us, and they don't. They'll flat out say they don't. So there's, these feelings on both sides, and how they navigate that. I think they need to just make sure that they do it to the best of their ability. My friend of mine, Togi, made a comment to me, sent me a text this week or a DM, and it was Benoit's explanation of what took place for the server meshing. And he said something that I thought was very cool. He said, "This is open development for me." He said, to be able to hear feedback from something when we've been asked to do something. And I agree. I think that those opportunities like that, when they ask the community to do something and not having to wait for a quarterly report, but someone who just takes a few minutes out and says, "Hey, this is what happened when we guys tested last week, and this is what we're looking to do next week." I think those are things that can be helpful. That opens the communication up. But I think they could do little things like that. But beyond that, I'm just not sure if they'll ever say enough to satisfy the community, because there's a lot we want to know, and some of it we're just not going to find out until later.
Major, same question. Any suggestions you'd give for them in terms of like how could they improve this to cause less friction in the future?
Yeah, I want to agree with both of you actually. Fastcard, what you said. I think. What was it that you said? Sorry.
Why do you price stuff?
Exactly that part. Sorry. Thank you.
No problem.
I think that could help if they try to find an angle of somehow make it a bit more transparent or easier to understand for, I want to say, parts of the community who care about that, how those prices come to exist, right? Because otherwise we'll continue to see this meme, oh, it's just marketing, doing marketing things. And I'd be surprised if that's really the case, because Paul, thank you. You joked earlier about hire someone like Major Star stuff. I don't think CIG needs someone like you or me or like us. I think they have people like us. But it's and that goes to what you said, Griffin. It is. I think it's such a balancing act, right? We are such a diverse community, and I'm from PvP people to PvE players who would like to have a PvP opt-in slider, and everything between, from pirates to cargo people, to heavy dogfighters. And same goes for our expectations of what is Star Citizen right now. That's what I would like to ask. You said, Griffin, we're still in development. Absolutely, but I think, Paul, you said it the other day on one of your streams. Alpha, beta has lost any meaning by now, right? We'll probably go from here straight to 1.0 at some point. So yes, we're in development, but at the same time, they're also marketing the product right now as we speak as
Playable
something
now.
That's playable now.
Yeah.
Which doesn't say, oh, of course, when you sign up and before you pledge, there's all the legal fine print there, and you're signing up for something in development. But then, there's people like you who've been with this for the past 10 plus years who are aware what they signed up for. And I've got friends in the community and in my org even, like, who work in IT development, of course, who have an easier time understanding how things work, how this is like iterative approaches and doing this and doing that. But then there's, especially I think, as we draw in people from the wider gaming community who haven't been with the game, like not even as long as I, like only having been with the game for 2.5 years, I have a certain understanding of what to expect and what not. But the more new people we draw in from a wider gaming community, I think the more of a balancing act and a thin line it's going to become between balancing expectations that experienced pledges like you gentlemen have, and then people who come in and they're like, oh, it's playable. Why do they call it an alpha? And so I think that's a huge challenge, and I'm not sure if I wanted to be in their shoes.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are definitely things they could do to improve here and there. And I'll clarify. I said earlier, I said they need people like Major Star stuff. What I mean is, I think one of the biggest issues they have right now is I don't think they have PR people. I think they're still so focused on development that we often hear the meme of, oh, marketing does this and marketing does that. I hate when people say that as somebody who's been in marketing. It's like, it's not what we do. Like, this isn't how we work. And yeah, there are companies that let the suits kind of control the narrative because it's all about sales and making as much money as possible. But CIG really isn't in that figure. It's clear that CIG is doing what they're doing for the sake of the love of the game, as it were. Like, CIG could be making a way more money than they are currently through a lot of different practices and the things they could do that they don't. And while that's commendable at times, I do think they often, because they don't have the expertise of someone who has to talk to gamers in general, they can make some basic mistakes here and there in terms of how to talk. And I think that, but there's still that line. You don't want to be so corporate that you're talking like Sony does when they're making announcements. But at the same time, you don't want to talk so loosely that anyone can invent anything out of what you say, because you're having people who aren't used to talking to non-technical folk.
Don't you have phones?
Yeah, you don't want that stuff, But and I think you brought up Benoit. Benoit is a great example, because Benoit clearly was, I think he was the CEO and owner, or at least one of the owners of Turbulent, and it's clear that Benoit, as a CEO and as a manager, has people skills and knows how to talk to people and knows how to communicate with people. And he shows that very, very well. He is very good at communicating. In fact, I met Benoit very early on. I went to a Bar Citizen in when they were doing GDC, when CIG was at GDC. And he went up to me and said, "You're Paul Shelley, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, who are you?" He's like, "Oh, I'm Benoit. I'm the CEO of Turbulent." And I was like, "Oh, hi." This was like before.
And he actually autographed.
So it was one of those weird experiences. And I talked to them about his experience and stuff like that. And this was like 2017, 2018, something like that, when this happened. And it was an interesting experience, because he sought out, he knew the community members, he knew who to talk to in the community, and it was clear that he paid attention and that he knew the language of how people talked in the community. So, like, that's great, but you can't expect everyone to be Benoit. I don't expect stuff. Yeah.
I have one more advice, and I'm going to steal it from Griffin Game, because this is something he normally says. Bring back Pillow Talk and do it like quarterly, or at least twice a year. I mean, that helps a lot. People who may not be familiar with Pillow Talk, that's when the producers of CIG would come on, would do a video. I want to say it's like 20 or 30 minutes or something like that, 20 minutes, and just talk about the development of Star Citizen 42. And they I don't want to say they promised, but they said they would do it more often, but then it was like 1 or 2 episodes and that was it. So that's my suggestion. Bring back Pillow Talk.
I think a lot of Pillow Talk stopped because of COVID. Like, that was the reason why they stopped doing it, is because COVID happened and they just didn't have that. So, you don't want the producers talking to the community. I know a couple of the producers, and they're very, very funny, but I don't know if they would be able to shut their mouths. They are very, very witty.
One idea from what you guys just mentioned, or reading chat here, and on top of that, someone said they changed playable now to early access now. I feel like that would be one thing to maybe look into, like, decide how you want to market this at this point, right? Is it still, Griffin, is it still something? Yes, we're in an alpha phase of development, technically, in developer speaks, but is it something that at this point they should still market as an alpha? Or maybe wouldn't it be smart to commit to, okay, technically it's an alpha, or but to the target audience, as we're talking to a wider target audience, not only those long-time backers, we need to start referring. This is early access, and you know what? This is what you get if you pledge now. I feel like, or maybe that's just a gut feeling, but I feel like there's this uncertainty in a lot of ways about what this game is going to be. gameplay aspects, all those
Mhm.
things. But on top of that, do any of you know really what will be your advantage, your of having been with the game for 10 plus years and of being an early supporter compared to people who maybe then buy the game at I don't know, we don't even have an
Yeah.
idea. I'm not sure if CIG have an idea of what's the funding model, the marketing model going to be once we reach 1.0.
Mhm.
And I feel if they were to look into that a bit more and then commit to, okay, this is early access, and pledging now during early access gives you this and that advantage or these advantages.
I,
I think
I
that
want to
may
go
help.
first. I want to
Sorry,
go
go ahead.
first because the others were way more eloquent than I am. But there was a point in time when they were talking post alpha instead of alpha. Uh, you will probably remember that. But we never got the distinction between what is different from alpha and post alpha versus a beta. Because they haven't said beta yet at all. So that was like 2017, 2018 when they started throwing that time around. But I haven't heard post alpha in a while since then. But that's my take.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been through all these titles and pre-alpha, alpha. And I agree with you, Major. I think that I've had a problem with the whole playable now thing since they started doing it. Only because there's a couple things that CIG does. One, they declare Star Citizen as a game. And I do understand what they mean when they say it. But I also understand when someone who doesn't know about the development, all this stuff hears it's playable now in a game, their expectation is to come into something that's working and that will give them certain levels of response. I think that even though I appreciated the terms pre-alpha and alpha, they forced me as a longtime gamer to do my homework and find out what that meant and what it entailed. And then the more I understood what that entailed, it gave me to give some grace and room to what CIG is doing in the development process. But I agree with you 100%. I think that at this point, we should be in a title that's called early access. I think it should be promoted as that, as early access. And I think it should be more of instead of playable now, it should be come in and test. I played 7 Days to Die, which was in freaking early access for like 12
12 years, yeah.
12 years, and nobody barked about it. It was early access, and there'd be times you ran into stuff that didn't work, but early access is a much more common use phrase amongst the gaming community than when you start saying alpha and beta, because even beta, people get beta usually, but early access, I think, is a much more embraceable statement for people to give room for the fact that things can still go wrong when they step into it. A fast card told me that at one point there were people who believed that the name of Star Citizen was Star Citizen Alpha. He said that's what he thought, that people thought that's what the name was. I never thought that, but that's also because I understood what they were trying to do. But there probably are some people out there who thought that the game was Star Citizen Alpha and then 3.6. You know what I mean? They didn't understand because
Patch
the term
3.6,
alpha. Yeah, most gamers have maybe done beta and early access, but very few have done a full, access alpha kind of thing. So I agree with you 100%. I think early access is a better place to be. I think come in and play or test. I think that's fine. That's history will tell whether or not the playable now bit them in the butt or whether it was the right thing to say. But I've always struggled with the playable now. I've struggled with the size of the font, right? Playable now is big and then alpha's like this, on the screen. It's like, no, that's not how gamers read, And that, to me, it seems like that's your legal out. You need to make sure that people understand better, because alpha doesn't mean everything to, and even in the gaming development community, the term alpha can be very specific to certain things. There's a general definition, but it can also be very specific in dealing with what type of software you're dealing with. So there's a lot of education that we all needed to have a better understanding of it. Doesn't always excuse what they do, but it does excuse some things that they do if it's truly alpha state.
Yeah.
And I think it might help if they put a zero dot in front of instead of three whatever.
Yeah, 0.3.
Because people understand, because when you say 1.0, that means release, whatever. You see someone say have a high number like a 3 or 4, that typically it means for people that it's a launch game and it's released. But so I think they should consider adding a 0 point in front of those numbers, but they probably won't.
I will say on top of all of this, I agree. I think CIG has an opportunity to get creative because CIG wants to do two things at the same time, which is dangerous. And again, it's part of the reason why I have to walk that line. They have a live service. Star Citizen is a live service game. All MMOs are live service games, and CIG wants to sell it as a live service game. So they have to they want to market it as a live service game because that gets them more money and all that kind of stuff like that, and that keeps the lights on. At the same time, it's an alpha. It's not finished yet. And CIG doesn't want to make people think that it's a final completed product because people will treat it as a final completed product because it's not there yet. So CIG wants people to play, but they also don't want people to come in and be like, hey, why is this game suck? It's like, because it's not done yet. We're still working on it. And I do think that changing some of their marketing discussions or the way they talk in their marketing in their copy right when they write copy should be more for like early access is a great term, saying in early access now or pilot come fly today kind of thing. People know what an early access is. Like they generally know what early access is because of things like Steam, but they don't like, and I don't think that the playable now thing is super bad, but it does bite them in the ass when they have something like Cargo Empires, where it was like, 318 or 324, when there were like 318 releases playable now, and nobody could get in the game for a month. And Cargo Empires, they call it Cargo Empires, and you couldn't do the cargo missions for the first week. Like, so there are those problems that come up, and having these sorts of the way you phrase things can help get around those problems. So like people aren't going to just point at that and be like bad. It makes it hard to do.
Maybe they are not against, but hesitant to use early access because they started in 2012, and that was before the whole early access thing started. So they started with alpha, and maybe they just want to keep it alpha because change is bad. I don't know. I'm not with them or anything, but could be it.
That's the thing. There is definitely people get stuck in their ways. They do things a specific way, and they don't want to change it because it works. And CIG has changed in the past, and they will change in the future. But I do think that there's always that concern that people will have. But I also think a big way of doing things that CIG could improve with is trying to build player goodwill by moving things more towards playing in game. Because I'm of the belief that if CIG moves to more of a game-focused experience versus the website-focused experience, even with their sales, they will get more traction in game, which will build more talking about it on social media and other things, which will get more people interested in playing it, which will improve. And I know CIG is hesitant to do things like let us fly the ships that they're going to add in game for free when it first releases, but things like making ships rentable when you sell them so that players can experience them. Experiencing them when they release would go a long way to building goodwill, because players would say, if someone would say, oh, this is a cash grab, and it's like, well, you can get it in game right now. It's a rental, but you can try to fly right now if you want to. It takes a little bit more of that. The wind off the, it takes the wind out of the sails of that sort of people who are going to be bad actors no matter what you do. And it also builds a little bit more goodwill for people to say, hey, I can try it right now. I can play, I can enjoy it for however long. And there's little things like that they can do to improve upon it. But I agree in general that I don't think there's a one size fits all for this problem, because no matter what, if you say something, people are going to take it negatively. You can't, even if you have the most noble of intentions, someone's going to think you're the devil. That's just the universe. You can never make everybody happy. The important thing is to make sure that, generally speaking, your players are happy, or you're moving that needle in a good direction. And I think they're in that direction. And I think that's really what this September has said, is that CIG, despite controversies, is moving in the direction that they need to be moving into, especially coming in with 4.0. So
numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
There's two small things I'd like to add, if I may.
Go for it.
Because and then I'll stop quoting chat here. Because someone said, why are we owed an advantage, as people who pledge the game? I would like to point out that I'm involved with the game. I've pledged the game. I spent a certain amount of money, but I'm trying to look at this question more from my perspective as someone working in, as I think as we all do here, from a perspective of people with a certain experience, professional experience in marketing, communication, stuff like that. So I don't mean necessarily to say that because you pledged the game and you've been responsible for making this all possible, you deserve an in-game advantage or anything. And just I was there and I helped this become a thing should be enough. I absolutely agree, but I'm more, I keep saying this. It's more about fine-tuning the overall message at a point in time where we are, and I'm repeating that as well. We are drawing in more people from a wider gaming audience. So who do not know, I don't want to say no one knows what an alpha is. Everybody who's a gamer knows what an alpha is. But Griffin, as you pointed out, if I read Star Citizen Alpha 3.0, I'm like, okay, is this 3.0? It's alpha. That we are about to bring in an amount of people. I don't want to say Squadron 42 in 2025, but with the amount of additional attention that CIG, Star Citizen, Squadron 42 as a brand, as a product, as products are about to get from the gaming community, that so far we have to remember we are the minority. We are, I don't want to say 0.1% of the gaming community is Star Citizen, probably much less, right? So the vast majority of the gaming community doesn't know the first thing about Star Citizen. I agree. I'll die on that hill. And those who do, who are not within the Star Citizen bubble, they have heard negative things like it's a scam, it's alpha forever, which is another reason why they shouldn't be calling it an alpha anymore right now, because it carries so much baggage. It's an alpha. It's been an alpha for 10 years. So the points I'm trying to make here tonight are more from I'm trying to have this outsider perspective, although I'm not an outsider really, but really speak more to the point of at this point in time where they're about to get this massive increase in attention from that wider audience, hashtag Squadron 42. I think they need to look at how to fine-tune their brand and product communication in a lot of ways, and then just adding little messages here and there. And the message can be everybody who pledged during the early access or alpha phase, just tell them what to expect. If it's, thank you for being here, that's all, great. If it's once we get to 1.0, you'll all have an in-game, I don't know, teddy bear saying I held the line, little things like that. And arguably, before Chet starts throwing that at me, arguably, this is not the point in time where development should invest in questions like that. But that's something marketing could look at, and
Yeah. I think we had a good discussion about this. This is good. We've been going for about an hour, so it's good to wrap that up. Make sure you're checking out Major Star stuff. It's T Games and
just
Star
look
stuff.
Up major Star stuff everywhere. Sometimes the handle is T Games and Star stuff, which I know is confusing and it doesn't cater to the algorithm, but I couldn't care less. Sorry.
Yeah, T Games and Star stuff. And then check out Griffin Gaming RPG and Fast Cart on Soul Citizens. You can check out Fast Cart on the People's Radio and all 700 other things that Fast Cart is part of. He's everywhere in the community. And if you enjoyed this, make sure if you're watching this after the fact, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and hit that bell icon to be notified when these release and when we go live. And if you're watching this live, again, do the same thing on YouTube. And if you're here on Twitch, hit that follow button. We do this on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. We go for usually a couple hours here. And on Saturdays, and would love to have you come by and join us. And with that being said, we'll move on to the question and answer session. And if you're watching this after the fact as well, right above Fast Cart's head will be a link. That link will take you to the question and answer session. If it's not up there while you're watching this, then wait a couple of days, or it'll be up in usually a couple of days after I initially go release. I usually release it on Tuesday.
But Paul, you
afterwards.
promised.
Yeah, I know. I lied. And if you click that up there, you'll be able to watch the question and answer session right after this. But until then, thank you for watching. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.
I get to make a 3/5 joke later.
We're not done yet there, Super. We're going to be right back with the question and answer session. So don't go anywhere, y'all. We're just taking a quick break for a few minutes to use the restroom and other things like that. So. We're back with the question and answer session with Fastcart and Griffin Gaming RPG from Soul Citizens, and Major Star Stuff from Major Star Stuff, and T Games and Star Stuff. If you missed our little the video we released earlier on September, the controversy of September and the sales of September and how they're kind of don't quite match up with one another, the link for that will be above Fastcart's head. You click that link, you can go watch that, and then you can watch this because we're going to probably take some questions from the chat, which will reference stuff we've already talked to, or we'll say, oh, we've already talked about that, and then move on beyond that. So just keep that in mind as we're talking. Well, with that being said, let's get started with the first question. The first question is from Steve the Dancer, who asks, what do you think of 3.24.2 with 42 new MFD keybinds alone, 84 with long and short activation? How will you deal with it? It's a good question. Anybody want to jump on it?
Well,
No?
That's why it's good to have voice attack, joystick, Stream Deck,
I will say, not the people with voice back, but HCS Voice Pack did a special release or special announcement saying, hey, we've updated our keybind thing. So they have a keybind tool for HCS Voice Pack. So yeah, that was something that happened, came out last week. So yeah, that's something.
You know what? I'm gonna say I think this is a good thing because you could still access all of those things just via the MFDs. So it's not like you have to set up those hotkeys. It's just they're giving you the ability to set up those hotkeys. So those people who are the Shveti of the Shvet lords, you know, who are just really like really trying to do it, they can have those little buttons they can push. But for the rest of us, we could just go down, look, tap. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm already overwhelmed. I'm back to keyboard and mouse. I used to be left-hand stick, right-hand mouse. But even with like I tried to export my joystick settings and then I just gave up. I mostly fly medium to large size ships into asteroids and take screenshots. So I'll just go with the default keybinds and figure them out as I need them.
Yeah, I hear you.
I should probably just sit in a turret and shoot at things.
Next question comes from Gin and Tonic, who asks, what do you think of the plans are for the Atlas's left arm? Griffin, you mentioned that earlier. So what do you think they're going to put into the left arm?
You know, it's funny. Maybe, and Paul, you're a lore person, so I don't know the whole thing about Argo, but that looks like a small version of the same unit that's on the front of the Argo
MPUV.
The MPUV, but there's another one.
You mean the raft? The two large things?
The black things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that's why I keep wondering what is that? And so I'm hoping, and again, this is just a hope.
Which they said about the raft, they specifically stated they serve no purpose other than being aesthetically pleasing.
Just aesthetically pleasing,
right?
and that was it, right? So I hope, but I looked at the design on the one on the hand thing, and it's got wires running to it and a whole bunch of stuff over there. So I'm hoping that it does become something that's else utility. So, you know, what that is, like we were talking about repair. They gave us this new thing about repair, going out and taking a multi-tool and repairing a pipe or something. Maybe on a large industrial scale, you would use a unit like that. Blow torching, I don't know, but I just think that it will be a multi-tool of some form on that left arm, because otherwise they would have given us two tractor beams, and we see this kind of mirrored in the Vulture, you know, where you have the tractor beam on one side, but you can put two salvage beams on it if you want or whatever. So I'm just hoping that they want to say they want to give us options, you know, and hopefully we're not locked into something, and I think that would add greater value to a unit like that.
I agree with you. I'm something's gonna have to happen because it's symmetry. CIG is all about like balance and stuff like that when it comes to designing these things.
Not always.
Well, unless it's explicitly, you know, not balanced. Like the Corsairs was explicitly designed to be a little bit different, but it's Argo. Like that doesn't really work with the Argos.
And the MSR.
Yeah, but the MSR is also like Crusader, and I don't think there's many non like Drake has a long history of ships.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Drake too. Yeah,
but Crusader really doesn't. It's like the only ship. Oh no, I guess it's the Ares 2, which kind of has sort of asymmetrical a little bit. So it's got there. But like Argo is.
But what's the other data runner?
The Herald. The Herald was
Herald,
originally
yeah.
asymmetrical, and then they kind of made it more symmetrical. So
Right.
I want to say they'll do something with the left arm. I optimistically, the ATLS is a Swiss Army knife where you can swap the tractor beam out for a repair beam or a salvage beam or something like that. But I think the pessimist in me is that is a big flat object that you can use to beat people with if they get too close to you. It is a punching arm. It is a power fist. But they just didn't have the functionality to add that into it originally. So then they'll just make it available in the future. Get away from her, you bitch, kind of like moment. So.
I mean, for all we know, the Atlas in its current state could be tier 0.5 Atlas, and just a very early iteration of plans they may or may not already have, or at least come up with, over the course of the development.
We don't know exactly what they're doing, but I think there's something that they're either planning on, or there's some ideas that have been left on the cutting room floor for it. But it's clear, like, it doesn't even have damage states yet or anything like that. It's not fully ready.
It's indestructible, yeah.
Yeah.
And Paul, you made me. You remind me that maybe for April Fool's joke, they could say that we're adding like sockets or something like that, and they can make it like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. That's an old reference.
Yeah.
That's an old reference. Some people may not get it, but yeah, Rock'em Sock'em.
I know my audience. They all got it. They actually owned the Rock'em Sock'em Robots when they turned 30.
Okay, I want a gunship and an exploration version of the Atlas now.
Yes, gunship version.
Gravity bombs in the left arm.
Oh God.
But I was going to say something about the ATLS, but
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. It's
oh God.
I do think that it was. I do think that it was originally made for Squadron. I think it's the reason why we have it. It was originally made for Squadron, but it's made because you're walking around a station or you're walking around certain things. You'll see some of these things moving boxes around and such. And so it's designed as a set piece rather than as a tool. And maybe you get to use it every so often or something like that as an option, but it's not designed to be like in the line of combat. So they never made a damage states for it because it wasn't supposed to be damaged. And so they just kind of did that with Squadron. And then they said, hey, we're doing the cargo thing for Star Citizen. Let's just put this in so we can do it for Star Citizen. So, I don't know. What do you think, Major Star Stuff? Do you think they're going to add anything for the left arm?
Yeah, I mean, you guys are giving me ideas now. Yeah, again, the more I think about it, thinking about it right now as we speak, I feel like who knows? We may look back in a year from now and be like, oh, that was a very early iteration of implementing this Titan suit kind of concept, and who knows? We may end up having 10, 15 different Titan suit style vehicles, and it all started with the Atlas that we have right now. But yeah, I don't know. I think someone in chat said a scanner of sorts would be nice. Something. But then again, that also exploration when, right? So what purpose would a scanner serve currently?
Cool.
I guess the logical next evolution will be giving it a gun, right? For PvP combat. Or for ground-based combat, sorry.
Fastcode, what do you think?
I already gave my answer. If give it some kind of. I mean, like a salvage, repair, and attachment makes sense. I don't know what CIG are gonna do for that one. Like I said, I'm just waiting for my Titan suit.
I'm with you. All right, we got some questions on YouTube. Somebody asked, $10. Thank you for that super chat there, Escapa, who asks, how often do you interact with Spectrum forums? I do want to clarify, none of us are CIG developers. None of us work for CIG. So if you're asking that if we're like CIG, we're not CIG devs. So we're not answering. We can't answer it in CIG devs. I will say myself, I don't go to Spectrum very often, though, myself. Mostly because whenever I do, like I would say about 50% of the time, someone tries to use it to take the piss out of me because there's a lot of people who don't like me on Spectrum. So I just like, I'm not going to show up to a forum to have a discussion, to have people like decide that they're going to use it as a platform to like attack me. It's like, why bother even talk about that? But yeah, in general, like I don't go there too often. I do visit every so often, especially when someone says, hey, they announced this on Spectrum, or reading the devs' responses and such like that. But, you know, Fastcart, how often do you go to Spectrum?
Patch note, probably twice a week. I look at Dev Tracker more than interact with Spectrum. I don't actually post there, but yes, every Thursday for Soul Talk we cover some Dev Tracker comments. So yeah.
Okay, Griffin.
Yeah, same thing. Anything that CIG pushes out, if it comes out through the tracker, I'll go there for that. On occasion, I will post something if it's something that really is on my mind, but usually it's more of a game suggestion or something like that. And unfortunately, I have to read it because my Saturday show is basically the voice of the community. So I have to go in and read it and see what people are saying. And
yeah, I would not want that job.
Good or bad, good or bad. I mean, a lot of times there's good stuff out there. Don't get me wrong, but as far as being out there frequently for personal reasons, I'm beyond just me checking what CIG has to say. That's pretty much it.
Mr. Stresslove, how often do you go to a Spectrum?
Infrequently. I want to say these past few weeks or past 2 weeks, I've been looking at the testing chat channel during the tech preview that we had for the server meshing, right? So that's something. If there's something that makes sense that I go there. Other than that, maybe I browse the forums to look for some weird form of, I don't know. For example, I CCU'd my Banu Merchantman to an A2 the other week because I was tired of waiting for a ship that I never lived to see. Yes, to an A2 out of all ships, right? So now I spend my days browsing the forums to find if there's another individual who made the same horrible choice, and I can be friends with them. Occasionally, the community hub, like last year when I released those 2 Banu language videos. Go watch my Banu language videos. Those are posted on the community hub, and I think I got the what's it called, most valuable
MVP
post or
post,
something.
yeah.
MVP.
That made me very happy.
Congratulations.
So yeah, thank you. So that kind of that got me in touch with one of the community team, and we talked a little bit. But that's basically the very infrequent interaction I have with that.
All right, I'm gonna go through.
He hurt me when he said he upgraded the Banu
Merchantman.
Sorry, I don't think I'll. Sorry, German sense of humor and sarcasm here, but I'm not sure I'll live to see the release of that ship, and I just want something in the here and now that I can just fly. And it's a discussion for another time and space probably. But I think the A2 is more than just the meme that people make it to be out. It's more than just a meme for Jumptown.
Yeah.
But another time.
I'm not going to make the joke about the German buying the bomber.
No, let's not go there. Let's not go there.
All right. We have a couple more questions on YouTube which we can ask real quick, which is Stephen Hebert asks, with engineering gameplay coming in, do you think we will see many big ship fights, or is this going to be more small / medium ship fleets?
I think we'll get both. I mean, I'm not expecting like full-on EVE Online battles, at least not in the short term, but long term. Yeah, we could have some of the battles take place depending on what goes on in a verse.
Star stuff.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Question is like, do you think we're going to see more larger ship battles, or are we going to see more small to medium ship battles now that they're adding engineering in?
I'm super excited for engineering, but as someone who also appreciates larger ships, not so much the fighters, I'm one of those people who are worried about, will I still be able to solo my massive ships, right?
Mm-hmm.
I stand by the opinion that as long as you stay out of combat and you fly from point A to B, you'll be able to solo any ship in the game, and then you just have to stop mid halfway and do the repairs yourself. But more to the point of your question, I'm super excited for engineering and multi-crew play. The more I think about it, the more my how I see the game, how I want to play the game evolves. I choose my ships according to the gameplay loops that I want to be able to contribute something to, or just something goofy that I want to do at some point. But I'm one of those people who's excited to be crew aboard someone else's ship. I don't have to be the pilot. I don't have to be the owner of the ship. I'll sit in your turret. I mentioned it earlier. I'll be an engineer. I can be the pilot if you're okay with being flown into asteroids, mostly. But I think more multi-crew, which will be a necessity due to the engineering, will then lead to more larger ships being flown by people once we all get used to not flying our own ships all the time. I think it's going to be a process probably, but then hopefully larger ship battles, which kind of depends on server meshing, arguably, right? I'm not an expert on those technical details, but I mean, as long as we don't have servers that, I don't want to say 1,000 people. I'm not sure if we need those, but I guess you need 500 people's servers in order to be able to enable ship combat with all those polarities and stuff that people no doubt are going to field come
with more space or more people involved. Griffin, how about you? Do you think we're going to see, with engineering coming out, do you think we're going to be seeing more like big ship battles or more small ship battles still?
I think you're going to see more people going to Daymar to visit Scooter to get rid of their multi-crew ships. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that I think you'll still have a little of both, but I do think that there's going to be a bit of reckoning and awakening to the direction of where Chris Roberts wants to go with multi-crew gameplay. Not just multi-crew, but cooperative gameplay. And to Major Star Stuff's point, I think that they are going to do their best to try to make sure that people can still fly ships. But the risk factor is exponentially greater, especially as the universe gets more populated. So even if it's not players, NPCs, those interactions that could happen could be very costly. If you just don't have, it could be just nothing more than just simply if you don't have a gunner. Let alone an engineer and a whole lot of other folks. So I think engineering is going to make some folks reassess, and I don't mean necessarily in a bad way. I just think it's going to make them reassess. I think it may have players also understand the importance of cooperative gameplay under certain circumstances, and they'll be happy to do it once they get into it. It's a foreign thing in gaming. Gaming has been leaning so much towards solo play, no matter what it is you do. Even from us old Eve players, you fly a freaking Titan. A Titan's like a freaking 2 miles long, but you're the only person in it running it. You know what I mean? Games have just been creating that dynamic because obviously that's how you bring in money. And so going back to the idea of cooperative gameplay, where you really have to rely on working together and trusting each other and accomplishing goals together, I'm 100% behind that because I miss that in gaming. I love being on a ship with a bunch of people. And I mean, any of us who've done this before, play Star Citizen by yourself and hit a bunch of bugs and you shut down. Play Star Citizen with a bunch of people and you get bugs, you restart the game and jump back in again, right? There's a different thing when we all suffer together versus when you suffer by yourself. So I like the fact that this engineering thing is going to make us not just have a turret gunner. I'm looking for the permissions. I'm looking for the co-pilot to be able to call the tower and do scanning for me. I'm looking forward to the engineer. I'm looking for the guy who's in the back who's going through inventory and stacking stuff. I want all that in these ships. To me, that's where the real value comes. When, to your point, Major Star Stuff, when you pay $7 bills for a ship, you know, you want some stuff happening on that ship other than just the pilot's chair, you know.
Unless you don't do friends and don't like people, which I can relate to a certain extent. So again, to the point of crying and buying, right?
You triggered him. Congratulations.
You triggered me. I get it. Trust me, I get it. But it's called an MMO, multiplayer online, and I get it. I hear. I'm not saying you're defaulting to that, because I know there are some people who genuinely they're isolated, or they just want to play as a lone wolf. They just want to play as a lone wolf, right? I get it, but I think that there's a cutoff point. Listen, you could fly a Connie, you could fly a A2 or a C2. Can you fly a freaking Idris or a Javelin? As far as I'm concerned, you cross the line at that point for me. But that's for me.
I'm gonna in defensive solo players. I will say in defensive solo players, as somebody who played WoW for up to level 25 solo with no friends. It's entirely like sometimes you just want to get in the game and just play, and you don't want to play on other people's schedules. You just want to enjoy yourself. But I do think that there needs to be a balance there when it comes to that sort of thing where like eventually you're like, oh, this is like a bunker filled with xenothreat, or this is a very big asteroid. I am not going to be able to do this alone and to mine this alone. And so you're like, okay, get my friends in. I need to gather other people to help out. I think that's the big, again, that's a big sort of balance that they have to figure out is the difference between those two. But yeah.
And I just want to say that I'm going to still something up from Griffin, because you make a lot of good points. But Griffin is the one who said that, remember when they did the Idris tour, a whole lot of people melted their Idris or got rid of their Idris for something else because they figured out it's going to be too much trouble, or they figured out they didn't have enough people to run it. So every time they do that tour, I don't know if it evens out or anything, but some people do get rid of their Idris.
Yeah.
Again, I think the whole multi crew and massive ships and what to expect, it's complex. It's long-time backers. It's people who read the fine print, people who don't read the fine print. Yeah. When Star Citizen first was on Kickstarter, like games like No Man's Sky wasn't a thing, right? Nowadays we have games like that where things get super complex. If you want to run your ship, you have to source all those minerals and then craft something, and then all that. I hope that's not where we're going with Star Citizen, to that micro level of crafting your components ever. But that's just me personally. But yeah, so it's I think it's a development question, but it's also, again, to the point of crying and buying, it's also a question of marketing and communication, and I think it's something they need to be prepared for. And I think finger pointing, but you knew what you signed up for is one thing, but then, okay, but what about the percentage of the community that just would, as you said, like to just sign in and fly around their ship, kind of EVE Online style, at least tell them, or I think at this point CIG needs to figure out a way how to, at what point, communicate what to expect, and to make that a bit more. Will there be all that hopium about, okay, I'll just put blades in my turrets and solo my A2, or I'll just have 5 starter packs, because this, what the website still says on that post from, I don't know, 2013, each starter pack will give me an additional free AIQ, stuff like that. I think, I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I'd say they don't even know.
Yeah.
But there's just so many question marks, I think. Yeah, I agree that just soloing larger ships, EVE Online style, is not what we want, or what you'd expect from Star Citizen.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think
it's not so easy, right?
I was going to say Malkini. I'll make sure I get it right this time. Malakina says that there should be a way to balance it out, and and this goes to what Star Stuff was saying too. I think that hopefully Star Stuff, they will be able to develop the technology that allows the AI to function in that space for that player who maybe doesn't have the social connections, right? That can go out and play the game and still enjoy the game in some form. I'm always interested in how the UI would work. And, the CIG has always stated that, hopefully human players will in some ways be better than the, and we're not talking about this areas of accuracy, but sometimes in areas of decision making, right? A human player, if something's on fire, your reaction time may be different than an AI, or what an AI can do. And hopefully they'll develop it to some point where it gets really, really good. I hope that they do that. That will allow people. I just don't want that to. I want multi-crew to be that. I want it to be that there's some other things you do to make multi-crew happen. Yeah. Not that I'm just on the ship flying and And I know CIG talked about they're not going to make it to a point where if you don't have an engineer, you can't fly your ship. They made that very clear, and I think that is good. I think they should do that. I just want them to promote multi-crew, but not restrict it. Right, get gamers into the idea of going back to playing a game together and winning successfully together. And at the same time, if you're on late at night or your work schedule doesn't allow you, or it's time to put the kids to bed, and all your friends are asleep, you can still go in the game and feel like you can accomplish some things. I think that they have to. It's going to be a weird thing for them to accomplish all of this. I do want to ask one question, Paul, real quick.
Sure.
And it has to do with the aspect of this thing of immersion, Chris Roberts' term. Because we all have our hills that we want to die on when it comes to what we want to see develop in the game. But I noticed that I have to be careful, and I think we have to be careful that we're so focused on the thing that we want that we don't think about what it means for other aspects of the game. For example, if I were to say, I want flight to be simulated, like much more simulated, but I'm not worried about is mining simulated, or I'm not worried about if medicine is simulated. I just want this thing to be simulated or immersive or, to the fullest level of a simulation. I don't know how CIG is going to, I know they're going to structure something in between reality and fun. I know there's the dynamic of wanting as many people playing the game as possible, but at the same time, knowing that you're not going to get everybody to play the game. Mm-hmm. And if we worry about getting so many players into it, we can dilute it where we lose people. And if we make it too over the top, like what you were just saying, Star Stuff, too micro, right? You can lose another group of people. So I don't know where Star Citizen is going to land in that spectrum. I want it to have some depth to it, but I also don't want it to be a Kerbal Space Program. Yeah. Where there's just some people, we all have touched on Kerbal Space Program, but I don't play Kerbal Space Program every day. You know what I mean? and so I don't know where they're going to find that balance when it comes to what this universe is going to look like when it's all said and done.
Do we think they have a long-term plan? Sorry, I'm making questions here.
Yeah, it's fine.
Do we think they have a long-term plan for that? Or are they, because sometimes I feel like this is a step-by-step iteration of things, and there's a lot of missed, and do we think they right now have a long-term plan for that they're not sharing yet? Or is it we're all in this together with CIG and we're developing this as we continue?
Is the game, Chris, going to make the game we want? That's what I'm curious about. To your point, is the game that's in the back of Chris's mind? I'm talking about what he's just talking about. I'm talking about, and mind you, his could change a little bit too. Either it could change because of technology, it could change because of innovation. But let's just say in general, he knows what he wants. Is that going to be the game when this is all said and done? Am I going to like 70% of Chris's vision or 90% or 40% of Chris's vision when it's all said and done? It feels good right now, but when things change, we holler about keybinds changing, let alone, something serious in the game changing. How are we going to feel when we get the final product when it's the 1.0? Is that going to be the game that I wanted to play? Some people are going to say, well, he lied. He didn't tell us, this, that,
that.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who feel like there's no emphasis. Like, I'm into exploration, right? I've been sitting around for 10 years waiting for exploration to pop up. And walking around, other than exploring and picking up some fruit off a tree, there's no exploration.
I've been waiting for science and research.
You know what I'm saying? But then people who are on the other end, who are finding combat and stuff, they feel like they don't have anything or they're not getting stuff. Everybody's got their hill that they want to die on. I believe exploration will come. I have no doubts about it. There's too much in the game in relation to exploration. But I also feel like if you're going to make money right now on a development, PvP and combat is the way to go. Because I don't think developing an exploration game would have brought in $700 million. But I do believe that ships and cool stuff and fun like that brings in the revenue. And now later on, we can focus in on things like research and science and all that other stuff, But I got to wait for it.
Combat, PvE combat, large ships, large multi-crew. And then I still think NPC crew will be maybe the solution. I don't want to say the solution, but just give those who want to fly ships solo, give them the ability to crew their larger ships with NPCs, and you're good to go. You're good to go within the restrictions of the PvE environment of an PvE multiplayer game, which then if you choose not to play with other people, multi-crew, you won't be having a chance surviving outside of the restrictions of the safe areas or stuff like that. So
and Star Stuff, I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you
keep
remember,
developing.
but don't forget about the AI Blade too. It's like AI Blade is supposed to be something you can slave
AI
into your turret.
Blades, my A2.
I don't like using the
I'll
word
solo the
slave,
hell
but
out
that's
of
what
my
they say.
A2.
And I just want to congratulate Star Stuff for triggering me by when he said he CCU'd the BMM and triggering Griffin when he
It said
when he talked
solo.
about solo play.
I don't need a Polaris.
If you manage to trigger Paul, you'll have a hat trick.
All you have to do is say you like the Redeemer, and that'll be triggered.
Redeemer. I mean, we all know Redeemer is your favorite ship, right?
Yeah. It's funny because while you were talking, it's like you actually asked a question that the chat had asked, which was interesting about like how much is too much, like how in depth are CIG going to go in terms of like the differences between a sim and a simple game. Because like if you look at all even the question said, if you look at all the games, you see who said the specific question. Danny asked him, said the majority of popular games aren't very complex. Do you see CIG reducing the complexity of the game to make the game more accessible to casual players? And if yes, how far should they go? And I think the answer is no. At the end of the day, this is a Chris Roberts game. And one of the things, I always bring this up, but like Farm Simulator comes out pretty much yearly, is fairly complicated, and is incredibly popular.
Yep.
And it's only one of a genre. Like there's a game that I really enjoy, which is a great kind of, it's more of a narrative game, but it's like sim is its sort of background, which is My Summer Car, which is still getting played and updated. And it's a fantastic little game by a Finnish developer. And there's lots of other games like that. There's a game that came out like Mech Engineer that came out pretty recently that's fairly complicated. I do think that what we're likely to see is that CIG is going to flatten out some of the gameplay, not make it less complex, because what they'll do is the actual systems and how they interact is very complex. So they want to make how you heal simple and how you get food simple. But then when they combine in terms of like, oh, do you have logistics for food and logistics for medical, you have the medical goo you need or the medicine you need to be able to heal. That's where the like complexity comes in, where you have to like, oh, well, now I have to make sure that if I'm going on this mission that I have enough medical supplies and I have enough food. But also if you blow up, then you lose all those supplies that you just had built up for. It's that sort of balance. I think there's going to be a balance in terms of the complexity versus the simplicity. And I think that's
you brought up.
Go ahead, Star Stuff.
Real quick,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Real quick, some people say that they prefer a simulator as opposed to an arcade, and some other people say they prefer an arcade rather than a simulator. Star Citizen definitely going more to the simulator aspect. There's some aspect of an arcade, but not as much. But that's been my. That's what it seems to me. So, but other people may disagree. Now, whether or not the game's already too arcade for you, that's something only you can answer. Or do you want something more simulated? That's what spectrum and feedback is for. So, they are looking for feedback. They won't listen to take everything to heart, or you may be disappointed. But you have to ask yourself if what Star Citizen will become, not what it is now, but what Star Citizen will become is enough to keep you playing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And how do they manage to keep everyone that's been with the game so far, invested time and some of us money? How do they keep all of us aboard? And that is, again, I'm repeating myself, that is a task for marketing, communications, community management, like translate what's happening, the plans they have or may not have as they come up, translate that into something that resonates with the wider this very diverse community that we are. But Paul, I was going to say, you brought up you mentioned World of Warcraft earlier.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of how I see it. Couldn't that be a blueprint? Like the way I used to play the little World of Warcraft that I played back in the days. I just level up my character without really min-maxing things. I never got into crafting stuff or like on a very entry level kind of level. And I'm aware there's people who do raids and play together with other people and really min-max things or focus on jobs. Are they called jobs, professions, whatever? I know that exists. I know that stuff exists, but it's kind of out of my reach. It's not part of how I play the game. Or another example I'd bring up would be Stellaris. A totally different kind of game, I know, but someone I come more from a strategy game point of view, which is why I always get super excited whenever I see like a new tactical map for Star Citizen. I'm like, oh,
do it. Yeah.
But Stellaris is also a game I played a lot, not a ton, but never. I'm not sure how many times I got to the. See, I don't even know how it's called. The end game, the something crisis. All that stuff. But Stellaris, I think, is another game you can play, you can have fun with as a strategy game passionate person. But you can also then advance to like really getting knowledgeable about it and really learning all those mechanics and the intricacies of things. And I feel like Star Citizen could be something like that.
Yeah.
That there will be a way for you to play the game within a PvE environment or with other PvP noobs that don't know how to play the game. But then once you want to access those other 90% of the game or the other 80% of the game, there's just certain stuff that you need to deal with. And that will be, Griffin, I agree with that. The fact that it's an MMO that has PvE stuff, but also, you have to talk to people or at least, team up with people in order to get stuff done and efficiently if you want to survive.
Get the crunchy stuff down, the sort of details. Go ahead, Griffin.
Yeah, I was going to say in relation to complexity, can the game be too complex? I think CIG's theme of options is what's important to Major Star Stuff's point, right? You were talking about you can still step into World of Warcraft and not have to know all these other things and still find enjoyment in the game. And I think that that's the way it should be. But I was just going to use an example. Fastcart mentioned this earlier about when the Atlas came out. What he didn't say, which we had said on our show the week before, was that everybody was excited when the Atlas came out. But the week before that, everybody was bemoaning freight. Like, oh, God, we got to move all this stuff. I'm not doing it. Then the Atlas comes out and everybody's like, oh, I'm loving freight. There's this swinging back and forth that goes back and forth within the community. Here's something to make your bones chill. CIG said, oh, wait till we introduce weight and balance on your ship. And you haven't thought about the fact that we haven't implemented gravity. Oh, you haven't thought about the fact that we're going to implement dynamic weather and whether you could even get off the ground. The level of complexity they could go to could be really kind of crazy, right? Mm-hmm. At the same time, if you don't have that load master who's really into loading your ship and putting stuff in the right way, there's that auto load button, right? That allows that person to still continue to play the game. They may have to pay a couple extra bucks, wait a couple extra minutes, but they're not kept from playing the game. And they'll say, I get it. That's the mechanic that's there for me to use. To Star Stuff's point, as long as you can get in the game and find the enjoyment in the process of it. But there are people who've dropped into our chat sometimes in our Discord and said, hey, I'm doing something. I got to move some stuff. And some people will say, hey, let me know where you're at. We'll come move the boxes for you. There's some people who actually enjoy doing that monotonous stuff, So I'm hoping that CIG kind of, again, promotes that a little bit so that people who maybe have felt left out, they feel like I'm not the great ace pilot or I'm not the great FPS person. But dude, if you need somebody who can just load boxes or if you need somebody who needs to do your medical combat person, I'm there for you. If you need the guy who's going to drive the Atlas vehicle to drop everybody off. I just want them to be able to make people feel like everybody has some role in the game that they can do and contribute. But to the point earlier, solo players should be able to come into the universe and find their place too. I don't want them to feel like they hit some ceiling and they can't do anything else in the game. And that's a tough job for the CIG in an MMO space to create, but it's on them to do that.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the couple more questions. Go ahead, Pascal.
Okay.
Finish up. What are you going to say?
No, real quick, I just want to say, and I think if this was more of an arcade game, it wouldn't last as long. CIG said they want the game to last 10 years. If it's more of a simulator game or more complex, it have a chance to last that long.
I agree. To kind of what Star Stuff was talking about, what Major was talking about with like giving the ability to have this sort of tactical ability, because I watch a lot of, I am a secret strategy game player. 4X strategy, that is what I like to do. I am bad at it. I am horrible at them, but I love playing them, and I enjoy them. I'm
Same.
just I cannot make it interesting. But I watch the content from people who are like, hey, I'm gonna build tall in Stellaris, and I'm gonna do it, and with these sort of crazy strategies and these other things, and like there's like all of these sorts of nuance and stuff like that I think CIG could really lean into once they have most of their systems in place, that will really allow for that longevity of someone going, can I take an Aurora and turn it into the most deadly fighter known to man? Kind of ideas. And I think that's where the longevity of Star Citizen will be. So, in sort of like as a game released and available for people. All right, next question comes from Gin and Tonic, who asks, people always say, make it more transparent, but what does that mean? And be specific. Fastcart?
No, I'm hoping you make me laugh. Come back to me. Come back to me.
Griffin?
I can try first.
Go ahead, Major.
Sure.
Make it more transparent. I think I think, Paul, you mentioned earlier, right? It's CIG. What are they? Are they an indie developer still at this point? Are they, what kind of transparency can they afford also as a company who, if you read through all that fine print before you pledge, you know it is also a company that's been growing, and they have their specialists for how to word things legally and all that stuff. So I think there's a limit to what they at this point still can afford in terms of transparency, And we've been talking a lot about, or I keep talking about, oh, this is a job for marketing, and I'm sure by now everybody working marketing at CIG hates me, but also I can tell you there's a lot of smart people working in marketing at CIG, and probably also a lot of lawyers or people who tell them, well, no, that's not what we can say for legal reasons, So, I'd repeat what I said earlier. It's a lot about, not so much about fixing things. It's more about fine tuning. It's less about what they say. It's more about how they say it, and more this translating their messages, whatever gets released, whatever gets communicated, what's about to change. Taking that step back and thinking of translating that for an audience that doesn't. We're at the point of doesn't know what an alpha is.
Yeah.
And that to me could be a way of being transparent in terms of. So maybe not transparency is the thing that I'd ask for, but more translating things. Putting more effort into translating things for a different audience. That's not long-time backers, not even people who are right now in chat on Twitch and YouTube watching this, because we all have a different understanding. But there's also newer players who maybe are not aware of AstroPub, morphologists, you name them, Fastcard, Griffin, and your project, who come into the game and who their sole source of information may be the CIG website, or maybe the Star Citizen YouTube channel, at least for a certain amount of time before they dive in deeper. And I think for those, transparency, in my opinion, could mean just translate things in a way that they understand better what to expect now and in the future. And I think this in the future, arguably there's a lot of things that CIG themselves don't know at this point. But that's also something they could, that's something they share with us. Jared does every week, right? They're fairly transparent about that things are subject to change and all that stuff. Yeah.
Griffin?
And now you can answer. Now the two of you can answer the question.
What do you think, Griffin?
Your
what is
answer's a good
transparency?
answer. Yeah, your answer is a good one. It depends. A lot of the older backers will use this as their statement in relation to when Kickstarter kicked off, right? That there would be a feeling of mutual partnership in the development process. And that we would be well informed at I don't want to say at every level of decision, but at certain decisions. I think there were assumptions in that phrase. I think when it comes to transparency, I've always wondered how much transparency do we as the backers get? Are we getting 40% transparency, 70% transparency? And I think to Star Stuff's point, there's a certain level of stuff we're just not going to know. We just don't, and we don't need to know probably. We have to be careful what we wish for too. When CIG was transparent about their 1 year calendar of work and displayed that to us, some of us couldn't handle that transparency because when that calendar would change or when something got dropped or something got pushed, some of us in the company railed against it. We said that they were lying to us or they broke their promises, but that was all a part of development. Things change in development. Any good company projects themselves out, not just in 1 year periods, but 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, even 10-year periods. And there are very smart people who sit down and do that when it comes down to a corporation and a business, especially when you're talking about the type of money that CIG is bringing in. I know there's a lot of feeling that sometimes CIG is just shooting from the hip. And I'm sure there are times when things have popped up and maybe they've done that. But I think overall, they do have a plan. I think you were saying this earlier, Star Stuff. Do they have a roadmap within? They do internally. Does that roadmap change? I remember, Paul, you were around back when the innovation of being able to land anywhere on a planet came up. You know, for those who weren't around back then, Star Citizen would have been like Starfield. You would have said, I want to land, and you would have been just a little cinematic, and you'd have sat back in your chair and watched the process. And we were told that eventually we'd be able to land everywhere, but it would be years later. And all of a sudden they were able to do it. Well, I know for a fact that probably changed a whole lot of stuff in the roadmap when all of a sudden now we can land on planets. We don't know to what degree did it change things. So, you know, asking for transparency is also, are you asking for transparency about every aspect of the game or just the aspect that you care about? You know, because if we did that, we'd be talking a whole lot of stuff. So yes, I don't want to default to the whole thing that CIG tells us a lot, but they do. Thousands of hours of videos, documentation, newsletters every week, tons of stuff that they give, way more than probably any other gaming company that I've ever been involved with. But at the same time, I know there are times when we wish they were, to your point, Star Stuff, clarity in communication and consistency in communication. Fastcard mentioned this earlier. If you say we're going to put out something on Squadron 42 more frequently, do that. If you say we're going to do pillar talk, do that. If you're just going to test the waters, then say that. We're doing this to see how it goes. Say that. But once you say we're going to be out here quarterly, you better believe this community is going to be looking for it. And if you change up and you don't say it or you just let it fall by the wayside, there's a level of accountability that goes there, not just because of money,
or
but
things
just because of the fact that, things change. Right.
Yeah.
Something changes. Say we're not going to do it.
I'll jump in and just say that like my definition is basically that. But if things change, you tell us, because like I one of the things that drives me up the wall is like Benoit does a great example of has explained multiple times what happened and why they had to go from RMQ or from MMQ to RMQ, what that means. But they knew back in March that they had to do it. And they told us nothing about RMQ until July. And that's when they just sort of mentioned they're doing an RMQ test. And everyone's like, what is an RMQ? And then in August, they said it again. And eventually they explained what it was. But we didn't know what was going on. They didn't explain what was going on. They didn't explain that that's what was changing and they had to get this done for this. And then they because CIG does this thing where if they have something goes wrong, they don't say anything until they have the solution. Once the solution is right, and then the solution is out, and it makes sense. But if you
Socks was the example. Socks, they did that with Socks. Remember, the whole transition there wasn't until the year later that they felt that it wasn't going to work, so they had to change it. Right.
And I feel like they would get more credit for being transparent when things go wrong and they need to change them. They say, this doesn't work. We are going to work on something else. We don't have that 100% down right now, but we have some leads and we'll get back to you. Even if it's something that's sort of minor, but that like this obviously caused a delay in the release. I think that would be a bit more transparent. Like for instance, people got on CIG for saying, oh, well, 3.24 didn't delay, or 3.4 didn't really delay 4.0. And it probably didn't. It's probably the RMQ thing that's delayed 4.0 to quarter four at the very least. And they didn't say anything until recently about that. And it's like, oh, well, you wouldn't have CIG wouldn't have eaten as much crow if they had said that before, because people assume that this is what's causing this and that sort of thing. So, and I think that's the real issue when someone says be transparent is They want to at least be told what's going on and not just be told after the fact when something goes wrong and then have to kind of guess. And that's not a one size fits all. But that is what a lot of people, especially older backers, backed this, backed for. We wanted that sort of sausage making experience. So, go ahead, Fastguard.
Something Griffin said that made me think about this, but to his point, once you say the Polaris will be out by IAE, the Polaris better be out by IAE, right?
Yeah.
On the pitchfork for real. So this is not trying to be funny, but please reread the question because I want to make sure that what I have typed here is actually relevant.
Okay, she says, people always say, quote, make it more transparent, unquote. What does that mean? Be specific.
Like I mentioned it before, but maybe have more pillow talk quarterly or at least biannually. 10 for the chairman or a letter from the chairman, they've cut back on that. And people seem to respond well when they hear directly from Chris Roberts. So, do we know why
they don't respond well? They respond. I don't know about well.
It depends on what the topic is, but do we know why they seem to cut back on those, or have they not said anything about that?
He's coding.
Yeah.
Coding. Okay.
He is legitimately. I think.
All right.
I think it's a matter of just time and effort, because like
time and effort.
If I remember, they haven't said specifically, but if I'm gathering correctly, Chris is still one of the major decision makers for anything that happens in the game. So he still has to sign off, or is the final sign off. I'm sure it's not just Chris, because from what I've heard from CIG developers is that he's not this sort of dictator who's running around swinging a scepter being like, it's my way or the highway. He's very, it's like a lot of game development. It's very give and take, and you have other people there who maybe know more than you in certain things, and you kind of talk back and forth. There's a lot of discussions back and forth, and there's definitely like a management team that has to approve of a lot of the big changes. So he's probably just doing meetings all the time.
You're right.
So, yeah.
And it's been stated, but it's been feeling like they become less transparent as time passes. Up until like 2017, 2018, they had a more homegrown feel, in the developer feel. But now people can argue that they become more corporate. So they're tightening up on what they say and how they say it. And I think Griffin alluded to that they're trying to avoid spoilers, especially when it comes to Squadron 42. Like they have a monthly Squadron 42 newsletter, but it's mostly just text stuff. Sometimes you may see something like a keyword. It's a Titan suit every once in a while, but mostly it's just technical stuff. So, and also part of the blame is actually the community. As I alluded to before, they used to have the progress tracker or the roadmap out for a year, but whenever something didn't meet the expectations of the community, there would be a lot of complaints. And now it's just 1 quarter, so part of it is our fault. I'm saying our, but I'm saying I'm trying to be polite here. But yeah, part of it is our fault that they become less open. But in the future, I'm hoping that they have a 12-hour documentary or making of for Star Citizen.
Oh yeah, I'll watch it.
And
yeah.
And maybe make an hour of documentary for each year. So whenever this thing finally comes out, we have a whole lot to go through. But that's something in the future and something I'm looking forward to.
Okay. All right, so we've got 5 more questions. Okay. I'm going to handle some of these more salty ones first. Sir Tongi asks, how can CIG restore the faith of backers that are no longer impressed by words and pretty pictures? Release.
Delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah, delivery.
No one is impressed by words and pretty pictures. I like words and pretty pictures, but
I was going to say, I'm impressed.
like they're nice, but I'm not. I'm not impressed with just words, pretty pictures. I want to I like the lore. I love the lore. I know Major is really into like the languages and stuff like that. That's all cool, but I'm sure both of us would like to see it in game. We'd like to be able to play it.
Oh, yeah. Preach it. I mean, all that lore that we know from all that we know about exists But where is it in the game? I feel like 0.5% of the lore is in
the
game and
game.
can be experienced. It's all like in our mind palaces, the ones where you have that, you know.
And that's the thing.
Sorry, triggered.
I mean, that's the point. I think no one. I think almost all of us would just rather just have it be in game and release. And I think that's the key. And I think even CIG knows that. There's a great tweet that I saw by Space Tomato, where like Satisfactory went from being pretty steady, had some good money flow, and then like when it released, it went from like this to like this. Like it was like a 400% sales increase like in 1 week, and it was like because you released the game.
Yeah,
like people won't buy it in early access, but you release it, someone's going to go, oh, I've heard about this, buy. And it just causes huge sales. Like Squadron 42 comes out, when it's released, we're going to see CIG go from being like, oh yeah, we're making 100 million to if it hits the impact that I think it probably will, and if CIG doesn't screw it up, then you could see it getting like that amount of money in a month. Like we can see 100 million just getting generated in time that we have not seen at CIG before.
Here's the question: Do you think they'll actually publish that? That's not crowdfunding anymore. That's actually sales.
That's sales.
So
yeah.
I don't know.
They'll track it.
Put that on the website.
It will be a whole different beast. It will be Squadron 42 will be. I mean, it's a different game, obviously, but it's the Star Citizen equivalent to Starfield, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be.
My point is, I'm not sure if they'll track that or make it public. Yeah.
Well, that's a good question, because I think the sales will probably be on a separate website, so it's hard to sell.
Right.
So.
Yeah. To that question, I would say the same thing. Just delivery. I've really felt like at this point, this is where CIG was the put your money where your mouth is kind of thing. In light of the release of Squadron 42. The backers have patiently waited over the last 3 years when they knew that resources were pushed over to Squadron. So at this point, game features, game content, stability, all those things leading up to 1.0, which is what I'm hoping when we go to CitizenCon this year, we'll see what that road is to get there. God forbid he does another 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, because if I'm remembering correctly, we stopped at 3.10 in 2016, Paul, and it turned into 3.24. So hopefully we will get an idea of what's going to be between us, and then what we can expect in 1.0, because Chris's statement of a commercially viable product that people can come back to sounds great. But there's still questions that people in the community want to know, like, what will that look like? So I think delivery at this point, that's what it's got to be about. No more speculation, no more, it just needs to be getting stuff in our hands to build the confidence back that they're going to deliver. Yeah.
I think we all got a chance to answer. So
yeah, this has been a triggering episode. I just want to say that.
If I may add, I'm not sure if I answered the question already, but I've been talking so much. Sorry for taking so much time.
You're good.
Maybe I'd say it's a really great question. I'd also say, can I write a paper about it and get back to you? Because I think it's also a fairly complex question.
Yes.
Like in product marketing communication, we talk a lot about customer experience, customer journeys. So I think it's a fairly complex question. It requires really to sit back and look at the different archetypes, personas of customers that we have so far, and what may their reasons be of no longer believing in the project or dropping out, and then really addressing is this something we can address with more transparency, whatever that may be? Is this something we can solve with delivering? I think it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah. I will say,
give more budget to Jared might be the ultimate solution.
Jared he gets a lot of flack sometimes, but I think he's gotten better at the job that he has been handed, and he's gotten every year he's doing better and better. He's still sarcastic, but I love him.
I'm just hoping Jared didn't burn out, because sometimes if he looked tired a couple of times during this year. So I'm like, are you okay, Jared?
I mean, he will be one of the people. We only see him on screen, right, each week, and that's mostly what we know about what he does. Unless I think we saw him recording or being there for the recording of the score or something for I guess Squadron 42. But I presume that, knowing what I know about how corporate companies work, he'll be one of the people who's in meetings
Mhm.
75% of the day, and then what we get to see is 20% of his work. And I'm very sure. I'm sorry, I have to fan person here a little bit. I'm sure he has this much of a list and multiple pages of things he knows that he would like to address and create content about. And he only has so much time and so much budget, which I think largely relies on the subscriber money, right? To address that. So I think I'm serious when I say increase his budget.
Yeah.
Duplicate Jared.
I'm with you on that one, especially with a major activation like Squadron. Like, you need that money, and he is that sort of the person who's built that trust and relationship. So,
yeah.
All right. Next question comes from. I'll again getting the salty questions out, and then kind of move on to the last one. So we got 4 questions left. Jack of no trades says, Can you guys, since you guys are mostly on board with the Atlas, where do you draw the line on monetization? Repair drones, mining bits, skills, reputation. My concern is that the more they monetize, the less room they leave for progression.
Wow.
The only issue with that is that as long as CIG remains with their statement of whatever they provide, you can get it in the game and work for it in the game, I don't see where the hitch is. That's probably my only issue. I know people still struggle with the 90-day wait period, but if it's something that's going to be in the game, it's still a business, guys, and they got to bring in revenue some type of way. And that revenues, and we don't know what the final revenue model is going to be for CIG. So sometimes when people say cash grab, it's like, well, yeah, everything's a cash grab. We always have to spend money. There's also the thing that you don't have to spend the money as long as you can get it in the game. It just takes a little patience. But I'm only referring to if they're talking about like items like the Atlas. I know there's a desire to want it right away, but it's not that urgent. You know, we didn't have the Atlas for God only knows how long, and we still did things. So. To me, as long as they provide those items and you can still get them, then the monetization doesn't bother me.
I can jump in. Go ahead, Pascal.
Do not charge $100 for a monocle, and do not charge the same price as for an in-game shirt as you would for a real shirt on a website. People who may not recognize those terms, that's something that EVE Online did 12 years ago, 14 years ago, and it was a disaster. It was protest in Jita, that's the commercial economic hub in game, and yeah, it was bad. So as long as they don't do things or do similar things like that, they should be fine.
I think there is a how to put this? There is a limit, but I also think that CIG crossed the Rubicon long ago, like way long ago, when it comes to like what they will sell. They'll sell everything. We know that. There's no limit. The thing that is really important to the more important question is will they sell progression? And in a way that is more than just ships. And I don't think they will, mostly because they have a lot of people at CIG who want to make a game. And the selling of what they have now feels more of we have to keep the lights on so we can make the game, and less of how can we monetize everything. It feels less of like people in a boardroom with smoke and being like, what's the quarter earnings like kind of discussion, and more of a bunch of like engineers who are like, oh my God, oh Jesus, these bills need to be paid. We need to figure something out. What do we got to do? We're like our quarter. It seems less planned and more reactive. The CIG is being more reactive and less planned when it comes to a lot of these monetization stuff. And sometimes they're just kind of seeing what they can do to make money. Where like, oh, this event's going on, let's sell some things here. Maybe we can make more money. And I do think that that is where they'll draw the line. Things like reputation, things like stats, those sort of things. I think they're going to keep those game focused and mostly focus on cosmetics and game and like ships and such. So,
Paul, I'm imagining Chris Roberts petting a white cat, and I'm liking the imagery.
Major. What do you
I
think?
don't think I have anything meaningful to add. So
Okay.
instead of going about one of my monologues, and I'll just shut up and just say I agree with what you said.
Okay. Some people are saying like I thought they're already selling progression. They're selling ships. Ships aren't necessarily progression. Ships are sort of like a shortcut to get certain aspects, but like a freelancer is good. It's $100+ but it's also garbage when you get it. It like this the equipment and all this stuff in the freelancer is not good.
And you can get it in game.
Yeah, and you can
For
get it in
free,
game for
basically.
free. You know, and the thing you'll need to make that shit better is in-game components, and those components are only earnable in game. And some of those components we don't know, not now, but maybe in the future. They've talked about reputation gating and those sorts of things. And those missions will be that get you the most money are reputation gated. So there's a lot of like progression that is not related to just I have ship now. They'll never sell reputation. I don't think they will. I think that's the line they'll draw. I hope not, at least. So, all right. So the next question comes from Northern Trooper, who says, "Howdy, miss you, Soul Citizens, and y'all. What are your thoughts of no communication on concierge support from CIG? Do you think they will update the concierge benefits or communication once Squad 42, or is it too much wishful thinking?" I don't know. What do they mean? Is it just like concierge is not responding? Is that what's going on? I don't know this.
I haven't had that problem. I personally haven't, and I haven't written into them recently, but I have within the last 6 months. And when I've written into them, I usually get a response within 24 hours. So I really haven't run into any problems. The two areas that CIG has always had an issue with is their customer support and back with merchandising back in the day. I don't know how those areas are staffed anymore at CIG because they've grown over the years. And because I've been concierge so long, I have no comparison. I don't know how standard support is versus concierge.
Right.
I know there are a lot of concierge benefits that people still look forward to. The concierge page, concierge information. And it's a weird balance because obviously they can't make concierge people so exclusive that they get things that the other backers don't get. And at the same time, there is this idea of feeling like there's a benefit to being concierge. We can't get secret information that nobody else gets or something like that, right? It'd be cool if they did a concierge video, just a video that was just directed to concierge people about things that are going on in the community. And other people could still see those things too. But I wish there were benefits that extended. Nothing that makes us over regular backers, but just something that's like, okay, this is kind of cool. I don't know. I don't know what else they could do. We get our little virtual items, but that's about it. I know there's nothing.
I hate that top hat.
You're okay with the monocle, though.
I have no use for it. Yeah, the monocle.
Yeah.
I don't know the question. I as far as I know, they're pretty good at that. There may be some issues where like they're not help desk isn't getting back in time, and a lot of that can be just because staff. It's a
timing, because you don't want to contact concierge doing IE or Invictus Suite. That is a bad time to expect something fast.
I think I have two recent examples that I can actually give. One, I don't want to talk about too much into detail what it was about, because I think that's one of the concierge benefits we have when we talk to them about anything, I want to say, web shop hangar related stuff that they may be able to do for us. I've been getting I've been hearing back from them within, as you said, 24 hours, I think. And then I've got another still open ticket, I want to say. I have to double check. No, I know it's still open. That is in-game related. So and I can be transparent what that is about, because it's probably one where they're like, yeah, we don't have time to get back to him about that, because that was some in-game bug, the Hull C related, and I ended up with that cargo still awaiting transfer on screen, and I was like, I'm not going to. There's no way in hell I'll play the game for a whole patch with that message on my screen for every ship that I fly, even fighters, And I was like, okay, I'll just write a ticket and see if they can do a character reset from their end, if that's still a thing, whatever. And I didn't hear from them back. But I understand that that's not something that have like hundreds of those requests. So I don't expect them to necessarily get back to me about that. So, but I feel like, as you said, should there be, what kind of an advantage should there even be for being a concierge? Like I think there's benefits we already have, get access to, like a short line and easy access to concierge support.
Mhm.
I think it's good for what it is. I don't expect them to give us more
And
support.
at this point, you gotta wonder what is the ratio between concierge and non-concierge in the community? Because I'm not gonna. I want to say 70-80% of us maybe concierge at this point. I have no
Everybody's
idea.
concierge these days, right?
It feels like there's a lot. I mean, but when you think about it, that is incredible because concierge is $1,000, right?
It is, yeah.
So maybe it feels like that because we're in a bubble with ourselves. So that's why it feels high. Maybe it's more like 40%, but we have no way of knowing. I've always had good results when I had to deal with support. The one thing I feel bad for them during the whole FAC Lightning debacle, where they didn't offer 120 months for the not the concept, but to release the FAC, and you had to put in a ticket to let them know that you did not have 120 months, and they had to do it manually. I feel bad for them, but I put that ticket in. I'll tell you that. Typically, they get back to me within 48 hours, and most of the time they get back to me within 24 hours. The few times they didn't was because at the bottom of the CitizenCon page, they say if you have a disability or you require additional help, put in put in a support ticket, and I've done that, and that's taken longer to get back to me. But that's understandable because by I put in a ticket as soon as the CitizenCon stuff is announced. So it's month to month to month before the actual event. So I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We've got 2 more questions. Iris Dreadtide asks, since we are investors and people are foolish enough to pay CIG to QA test, what is CIG duties to us? We're not investors. That's a legal term. That is my trigger. We're not investors because investors get
no, mine too.
Yeah, it's like CIG calls us backers for a reason because it's a legal term, and but yeah, and people who are foolish enough to pay CIG to QA test, what's CIG's duty to us? Am I a fool to expect to interact with Star Citizen as a game? Am I entitled for wanting an end goal vision write up on their website so I know where their dev is going? I think we've talked a little bit about this. No, I do think that there's definitely some level of CIG has to kind of explain what's the vision, where are we going? And we used to have this video called What is Star Citizen, which was a pretty okay kind of overview of what the plan is. But I do think that having a general overview of what the game is, where it's going to go, is probably not too much to ask, especially at this point, because there's so many things that have changed in Star Citizen's development. Not necessarily sort of the big stuff. Like a lot of the big stuff we still have, like Death of a Spaceman and all those sorts of things seem to be still around. But more of like Death of a Spaceman, for instance, went from being you get recovered randomly, like fade out, fade back in, to this whole like regen, like lore bit and like different aspects. And some of the details have sort of changed over time. But I do think that CIG definitely needs to reaffirm, and going towards 4.0 and eventually 1.0, what the game is. What do y'all think?
I just want to re-clarify, we are not investors. We've invested time and maybe emotion, but financially we are backers, and I don't think that's stressed enough, especially for maybe the new backers or the backers to recognize that.
Yeah. I understand the question. I think it's a fair question, and what is it we're getting what comes back our way.
Mhm.
You know, what we do in support is the equivalent of what public television here in the States does. You know, you watch public television and you see, oh, they're doing Sesame Street and they're doing this cooking show and this, that, and the other. And they say, hey, give us $50 and we'll send you a DVD for, you know, this cooking show. But I can't go tell my public station what programs they need to show or when they need to turn them on or what schedule it. That you don't have that voice. You know, what it is a way of saying, cheering you on for what you're doing. And we want to find a way to support you so that you can continue doing it. Now, the question is, what is the it? And to Paul's point, CIG, I said this earlier, has thousands of hours and thousands of documents out there that basically say a general direction of where they're going. I think it would be good that if we got some type of, Fast Carts, you mentioned this earlier, the letter for the chairman. The letter for the chairman was kind of like a state of the union kind of question or a state of the game kind of thing and where we're going. And so I would love to see things like that come out of it. Something that annually Chris puts out an annual letter that says, this is where we are. This is what our setbacks were. They did this last year after CitizenCon. He and Richard Tyra, right? And Benoit, all three of them commented. I thought that was one of the best letters that we ever got. Not just hearing from Chris, but hearing from other respected people within the gaming, within that company that gave people some assurances, for lack of a better term, of where we were going. And I just think that needs to be reinforced from time to time. That annual letter that goes out that everybody looks forward to, whether it's post CitizenCon or during their vacation break in January, where we kind of know this is where we're going with the company, this is the direction we're going, and how we feel right now. And I would love to get something like that. To me, that would be satisfactory. But beyond that, because things change, we are so good to making things that CIG says Bible and use that word promise when things aren't promised. There are aspirations. There are things that the goals that they're shooting for. And when they don't hit them, it hurts, admittedly. We get disappointed. And I'm sure they do too, because that's what they want to be able to do. But if technology doesn't allow it, or time doesn't allow it, or even community sentiment doesn't allow it, we have to be open enough and ready to be prepared to take that. So
I'm sorry, I know I'm definitely going to start stuff. But what is that word that they typically do after every patch when they say what went well, what didn't go well? They usually do that after every patch.
Not the burn down. It's
you remember what I'm talking about now?
Yeah.
If they came back and doing that again, that would help.
Postmortem.
Thank you, Jen and Connie. Postmortem. So yeah, I don't think I've seen those after recent patch.
It's been a while.
Okay.
It's another example of something that comes and goes, and we don't hear why it went. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of the point that I would like to make. Legally, they owe us close to nothing, I want to say, right? We don't even own the ships that we think we buy.
Mm-hmm.
If you check out the fine print. But I would pose the question, what would maybe be smart for them to do?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we just make us feel like, I don't want to say feel respected, because it's like, no, but just make people feel involved, which is what they've been doing a lot. But I think the letter from the chairman, like, I could be a quarterly thing, you know, just to keep us like, no, we haven't been hearing from them about and all this. And then we take, someone in chat earlier said, then we as the community take over the narrative and create the narrative, right? I think this letter from the chairman could be a quarterly, that's what I propose, way of shaping the narrative over the course of the year, you know? And then we've something to talk about for the remainder of the quarter. And just a bit more, I don't want to call it hand-holding, but just making us feel involved with just give us that glimpse into Chris's brain.
Yeah. That's always a danger thing, though, because it's Chris's brain.
Be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah. All right. The last question we have is from Northern Trooper, who asks, we've seen ships in game with Evocati to PTU to live. From all your experiences, should CIG release a ship to Evocati for pre-balancing and bug smashing, or reserve some ships to be released for live for that surprise? So would you prefer CIG release like a new ship to Evocati first, like a brand new ship, like, hey, here you go, and then it go to the PTU and be live, or them to kind of hold it away from the Evocati and PTU, and just when they go live, they go, here's the Saber Peregrine kind of thing.
Didn't they do that for the STV? Like Star Citizen Con a couple of years ago.
They did it as STV.
So they have done that.
Yeah, they have done that, and that's the question: is which one do you prefer?
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't mind them doing it with Evocati because they're testing some new game mechanic that they haven't had before. But if it's something that we're familiar with, like for example the Peregrine, it was a racing ship, and they had the other two ships ahead of it that they designed. So I didn't mind them dropping that. One of the things CIG used to do was when they would show up in somebody's stream flying a ship that nobody, all of a sudden popped up. I love that. That was a great way to introduce things, not because of the streamers, but just the fact that it brought a certain level of excitement, and it showed that, hey, there's the ship, it's running. It gave us progress. So little things like that they did, I appreciate it much more. But if there's a new thing being introduced, if you're introducing, I don't know, I don't say the Banu Merchantman, but if you're introducing stuff, like the expanse, right? If you're going to introduce the expanse, and now we've got a refinery and it's being done on a ship, and even though refining's in the game, if they feel that it needs to be tested ahead of time, then fine. But when we got the Valkyrie, we were sitting in CitizenCon and the freaking Valkyrie flew on the screen. That was great. So it just all depends. But if the technology doesn't block it, my attitude is go ahead and give it to the folks and let them have it. But if they need the Evocati, let the Evocati test it out.
Was the Atlas in Evocati?
Yeah.
No, it was PTU. It wasn't PTU though.
Oh,
It was in
PTU? Oh, okay.
It went
right,
that one day
It wasn't
was in PTU, and then they kicked it out the next day.
It wasn't.
It was teased one day, next day it was in PTU, and 2 days later it was
released,
live,
right.
kind of, right?
If I remember correctly, because I covered this on Show Talk, there was a point when Evocati only had access, even though it was in PTU, only Evocati had access to it.
because we didn't have an
that's
Evocati. Because we didn't have an Evocati for 3.24.1. It was just straight to live.
Right.
And so they gave them to Evocati members, and then they gave them to Wave 1, and then they gave them to Wave 2. Yeah. They slowly rolled it out to all those people. So, anybody else?
Yeah, so arguably with the unannounced chips that we're still expecting this year, they wouldn't even have a chance to bring it all to Evocati first, right? Because that won't align, like Evocati phases being there and being on and off, and then I think we'll see a few ships this year that everybody will be surprised about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here for it.
And I'm in Griffin. Right? It depends on the complexity and if they're introducing a new mechanic or a new feature. If it's something that they're introducing crafting or introducing blueprints or introducing base building or introducing what have you, science research, then Evocati should have it first, especially if it's tied to a ship. If it's something like racing or another fighter, they can just drop it.
Or a Crusader starter or what have you, something that doesn't introduce, as you said, a new mechanic, but it's just like, we have a blueprint for that. It's just now
Exactly.
There's one more question here. The last question, this was asked earlier, but the person had to leave and then come back from YouTube, and this will be the last one, which is, if you're still taking questions, I'd like to put your inputs and suggestions on a focus group /PR preview channel of players to check for blind spots that CIG may miss. Now, this is something that I talked about many years ago, and I think this has been kicked around the community a couple of times, where one of the things that CIG could easily do is set up a group of people who are like a board of people who are not CIG members, but backers who might be under some sort of NDA or something like that, where CIG can pass by ideas. They can go, we don't know how the community will react. Let's talk to the community in a way that the people who know the community well enough so that we can ask them questions. And then those people can say like, oh, this is really stupid. You're going to word it like this. You're going to get blowback from here, here, and here, because CIG doesn't have the time, the money, or the energy to go to every corner of the community and see how communities are going to react.
And that is something. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, the problem I have with that is that you'd have to find people you really like or really trust you, and even with an NDA, and at that point, just hire them. If you're going to take their labor, just hire them, even if it's just like as a consulting thing. And a lot of these issues don't necessarily need to have some sort of shadowy cabal of backers who are answering questions. Just pay for marketing research. Just pay somebody who has the time and the money and energy to do it, and just have them do it. You have all of the information. You can give it to a marketing research team who can then just contact those people and find people who they'll get information from. This isn't some new like voodoo science. Like, we've been doing this, marketing's been doing this for like 100 years, if not more.
They do need us to get the information that we could give them. There's professionals who can do that on a larger scale and answer all those questions.
Yeah. There's plenty of companies. I worked for a company that did marketing research. So I know I've worked with companies like Clorox and, or PG&E and Johnson's and stuff like that in the past as a consultant and as a brand, not a brand manager, but I forgot what the term was, but basically I wrote pitch decks and proofreaded them for some other people who are higher up to make those statements. But I've sat in those rooms where with a two-way glass and seeing what's going on and taking down notes and stuff like that. So these existed for a while. We have these tools. So.
Someone in chat says most marketing research doesn't understand backers. I'd say quite the contrary. I think if they know their stuff, they will understand backers, and maybe CIG will even learn a thing or two about backers that they didn't know before.
Yeah.
And all I'm going to say is, go ahead.
I said, doesn't Eve have a council?
That's what I was going to do. The CSM.
Eve has a council.
Go ahead.
And Paul, you're right. We've been talking about this for a long time, that I wish that CIG did something. I never thought about it being on a payroll kind of thing. You can bring greater accountability if you do that. But I would agree 100%. I wish they would just have, and you could just rotate. Let people be on that thing for 6 months or 3 months or something, rotate it around. But it just needs to be, anybody knows anything about motion pictures and film, when they cut a film, they often do what they call test screening, where they bring in some people, screen the film and get responses from those people and say, what do you think of this film? And if they say it sucks, they'll go back and reshoot, recut, do some other stuff to the film. So I think that if you had that demographic that they brought in, and even if it's nothing more than floating ideas, here are some things here are 10 things that we're thinking about, prioritize them. What do you think would work in Star Citizen? Just something as simple as that. But I do believe that they need to have greater input to get a sense of the community. And it doesn't, and not in the sense of trying to steer Chris's vision, but to maybe, if nothing else, confirm his vision, right? And CIG is very quick to talk about how when a great idea comes, they're open to great ideas. So I think that even though we have the areas on the spectrum where you can put in suggestions to the devs, I think it would be great if there was just a group that when something major is coming out, we drop it and say, what do you guys think of this? Or dropping it right now or whatever, and they get some feedback. Because I'm sorry, there have been some faux pas, some stuff that's happened that's just like, why didn't y'all just ask somebody?
Yeah.
Why didn't y'all all you gotta do is just ask somebody, how did y'all miss that? That type of stuff to me could be dealt with.
Or $20 for a digital ticket to watch CitizenCon.
Yeah.
Yeah, just ask somebody. That was a bad idea.
I
don't know if you remember that Star stuff. Real quick, I just want to say, Griffin, you and I having the same thought, but I don't like Dell in chat said it didn't work out too well for them to see some for even with CCP. CCP is a developer, so I would think it had mixed results, and knowing this community, I think it'd be a breeding ground for ill feelings, because how do you decide who gets to be on that council? Yep. So I don't think that's a win. I think that's a lose for CIG if they were to implement something like that. That's my opinion. Maybe it'll work out, but I don't think so.
CIG does also have a research department. I know they do. I know people who work at that research department, and they're all former back. Like I think WACA is part of that department too. So Wikipedia, so like they do have internal groups who do this, who kind of do this sort of things. But like, I have never. Bayer is another one. I think Bayer's the head of that department, and Bayer's great. Bayer of Red was one of those PvPers who could take literally anything and beat you with it. Like you could take the most meta loadout, he'd beat you in an Aurora. He was very good at what he did, and he's the head of their research. But at the same time, I don't know how much like money, how much leeway he gets, because like one of the things I've noticed is like I have never I intentionally, I'm stupid. You know those annoying emails you get that say, could you please take some time to take this survey? I am the person who takes those surveys because I know that if I do enough of those surveys, eventually I'll get a survey that says, here's $30, please take this survey. And I'm like, I'll take 5 minutes out of my time to earn some like a gift card to Amazon. Sure, why not? And I also know that if you take those surveys, they listen to you. And if you're looking to kind of make those sort of changes, then that's good. And I have never seen something like that. I've never seen CIG do a public survey or even sending it out for their subscribers or anything like that, which could also go for a long ways of trying to get some ideas of what's going on. So,
but we've recently had this feedback survey, haven't we?
Yeah,
I haven't looked at it myself, but I know some.
Oh, the Spectrum.
The one on Spectrum, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just saw some content creators answering it publicly, right, and then turning it into content. So I think those are a nice option to get a squeeze a little bit out of us. And I mean, they could even answer the questions, and you get, I don't know, a golden token for something that gives you the right to buy something on the shop, or
a free skin, or a free T-shirt, a T-shirt in game,
a couch that doesn't have skulls.
That's good. Yeah, so I stand corrected. They have been doing surveys. So yes, do those surveys. Yeah. That's my response. If you want to be answered, do those surveys. Because
I worry personally about the amount of trolls to real answers
they have.
That they get.
They can filter. They filter through all that.
Yeah, they have algorithms. There is some off the shelf stuff that you can get to buy that'll just filter the noise. So, and it's Bayer who's been doing this for a long time, plus all that team, so they know the difference between this is a good feedback and this is a jackass. So all right. Well, I think it was a good discussion. Thank you, Major. Thank you, Griffin. Thank you, Fastcar, for coming on and talking with us. If you did enjoy this, hit that follow button here on Twitch. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the like button, and of course, hit the bell icon.
Do it now.
And of course, check out Major Star Stuff, aka T Games and Star Stuff on
something. Thank you so much for having
Star
me.
Stuff. And make sure you check out the Soul Citizens, where it's Soul Talk on Thursday. And then Soul Voices on Saturday, and then Soul Citizen Podcast on Sunday, right?
I need to come check out your show.
You should go. You should have him on.
And Paul, this is me making a 3/5 joke. So hey, we went the whole thing almost.
Yes. You could have said it was 3/5 of a discount. Like if you've been watching this, we do this on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Would love to have y'all come and watch us live if you're watching this after the fact. Thank you for watching. And like I always say, hope to see you someday in the black. All right, y'all. We're gonna find someone to raid. Let me see. Yeah, they're still muted, but y'all should be able to hear me for right now. I can hear you. Yeah. Mary and Ariana streaming? Let's go raid Maiden. Mary and Ariana's good. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's go send some love to Mary and Ariana. She's a fantastic member of the community, does a lot of stuff with the Yacht Club and other groups like that. So check them out. Raid. Go say hi to Mary and Ariana.